Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 90, where we will cover Winter's Heart chapters 20 through 23. I'm your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my comrades from the KGB, Willie.
Yes.
Yes.
And
give
Jody.
too much away. Yeah, me too. I'm also here.
Duh.
Da.
Now, I know this little joke doesn't really play because of the content of this specific episode, but I did actually go read up a bunch about the KGB and the Gestapo after our last episode.
Yeah.
But I won't bore everyone with the details here. Let's talk of more pleasant things like the chapters we will cover in this episode. Real mixed bag, eh? Like we've got Rand, sweet, and then like a bunch of side characters.
Yeah, and I got the worst one.
Plot fillers.
I got the frickin' Seafolk, man.
Shalon?
But I wrung a lot of juicy juice out of that chapter.
Oh, okay. I'm glad. I'm
Yeah.
glad you did.
I
It
did
feels
more
very transitional.
research.
Oh.
There's a lot of people there. I mean, I didn't discover anything of note, but I put a lot of effort in, is what I'm trying to say.
For nothing.
For nothing.
Well done, Jody.
Well, that's okay.
I
do it for the
appreciate
fans.
The effort, yes. But like I was saying before, it feels transitional, right? Like we know finally we get our formatting little action sequence, but we also feel the beginnings of the flight from Ibudar for Matt and his rescued Damane and stuff. That's all sort of bubbling away in the background. So I know it sounds a bit lazy, like we're often saying, oh, it feels, it's all set up and stuff. I mean, a lot of the books are set up for big climaxes, so it is, relatively applicable to most episodes we do. But in this one, especially, I felt like, okay, cool, lots of setup, Cadsuane and everyone arriving at formatting as well. Stuff's going to happen. All right, well, if you guys are ready to forge ahead, I will launch straight into, as he reads their faces over the Discord call. Yes, everyone seems okay with that. Into callbacks. Okay, Willie, you asked about the Kudenkaal and why Moran didn't cart them off with the rest of the artifacts from Ruidian, if you will recall. And we said,
I recall
Rand...
saying it's hidden in a vault in the wall and such.
yes, we did cover that as well when Lanfear comes over to Rand and she sort of sees him handling them. And they were obviously doing that part of the story quite front and center, which makes it interesting because we haven't really read about them specifically since Rand retrieved them. We all obviously know about them. We know that he hid them in a little alcove that was in Ruidian. And I got some contrasting opinions from the fandom wiki and from the Tarvalon library, which are my two main sources for sort of like general book information. So according to the fandom wiki, there's some of the best, the most consistent anyway.
Yeah.
But so according to the fandom wiki, Rand has the Kudenkaal with him at all times, always hidden, sometimes in an alcove in the wall masked by an illusion weave, like the one in Ruidian before Lanfear visits him and sees him with them. The Tarvalon library wiki says he hid them in Ruidian and only fetched them during the events in the prologue of Winter's Heart, when he and Min are in Kyrian collecting those books from Herodfel's office. They're watching the steam engine down in the courtyard and stuff. And giving Dobrain his orders and that sort of stuff. Rand has them there. And when he's talking to Min, they talk about going to Ruidian. When he's asking about Shara and stuff in Ruidian, and he's going and asking about Chachin while he's in Tyr and all that sort of stuff. So Tarvalon Library thinks that he went and only fetched them at that point because he's got them with him. But the fandom wiki seems to think that Rand has them with him the whole time. So if any of our listeners have any sort of insight into what the actual movements of the little access keys are, let us know. Either way, Moran would not have packed them up.
Fetch it. Yeah.
What was that?
I recall Min and him fetching it. Why does that just...
That's what I recall as well, but it might have just been an assumption on our part.
Yes, because Rand has them with him, and they talk about going to Ruidian. They don't specifically say that he went to Ruidian to fetch them. And as I'm talking now, I seem to recall, wasn't there also earlier... Fuck, now I'm creating another callback for myself, but so be it. Rand at one point thinks to himself he's got 3 jobs to do. And they're sort of like these secret tasks, and one of them was sending Narishma to go fetch the sword or something like that. And I feel like one of those jobs might have been to go back to Rhuidean and at least fetch or check on the access keys or fetch them. I can't believe I only remembered this now and have to on air create another callback for myself. But maybe I get lucky and someone writes in and says, "Actually, Mo, this is exactly what happened." I'm looking at you, Ian Yellen, and the rest with the in-depth knowledge.
Nope,
We can see you, Ian.
So anyway, all of that is to say that Moiraine would not have had access to them, right? Rand had them since he and Asmodean fought, over the one access key, and they both channeled through it, and they had their big fight in Rhuidean and stuff. Rand had both of them with him, and Moiraine would not have gotten her dirty little Aes Sedai hands on them. Then, in the previous episode, Damien had sent in a voice note about Rand possibly talking to the Creator during the climax of the Eye of the World. So I went back to listen to what we said about it. Now, in the last episode, I mentioned jokingly that I feared going back and listening to an early episode. And boy, was I right to do so.
Yeah.
Those of you that are still with us from season 1, slow clap for you guys. Thanks for sticking with us. You guys are the real MVPs.
What's the matter
here.
with you people?
In episode 9 of Blood and Ashes, so full 81 episodes ago, the podcast starts with an apology from me about the quality of sound coming from Jody's microphone. I think it was one of those early eps, Joe, where the wrong,
I
device
remember
was
that.
connected to Zencaster. Yeah. Also, I sound like I'm delivering a eulogy. I'm so somber and so subdued. I think I was still in the pod, sitting at the dining room table with a blanket over me and my laptop, sweating it out in
the
this
old
makeshift sound dampened pod. Ridiculous.
Wow.
But we did address it. We did speak about the voice. And we all just assumed that it was the Dark One. Because of all the speaking in the books, at least from the books that we had remembered at that point, and me at this point, it was only the Dark One that spoke in capital letters. I think Rand has a conversation with the Creator at some point, or either at his Zen Rand moment or in the final book or something, but it's also done in all caps. So I went and I read the actual passage again, and I think it's the Dark One. I think it could quite easily be the Dark One that speaks about only the Avatar or the Chosen One will perform this thing, and then creates steps. Remember it was all that fog around Rand after the Tywin's Gap attack, and then he walks up these steps and then he enters into this room where he confronts Shamail at that point, or Baalzamon as he was styling himself. And I don't know that the Creator would help set up that situation, right? That feels more like a Dark One play to have his minions, aka Shamail or Baalzamon, do what they are planning to do. Anyway, I'm still leaning Dark One.
I concur.
But thanks, Damien. The gift that keeps on giving is my note here. That's Eye of the World stuff we're still discussing here.
Wow,
3+ years later, 80 episodes on, which is great.
There was something in that episode. Isn't that the one the innkeeper from what's his YouTube channel called?
Matt Hatch.
Yeah. Didn't he
Yes.
tag us on Twitter about that episode? He wanted to go listen to it. Was that it?
Don't think so. I think
That
he wanted to go listen.
episode's famous now.
Really? Wow. For all the wrong reasons. Infamous, in fact.
Yeah. Infamous. It means more than famous.
Okay, then we spoke about the dice in Matt's head. He seemingly senses the onset of important decisions or events that occur or that are soon to occur. This sense, referred to Matt as the bloody dice rolling in his head, has frequently helped him to identify important aspects of his life and act accordingly, best demonstrated when attempting to win over his future wife, Tuon. So the fandom wiki at least also thinks that it's not just life-threatening events, which is what we were talking about last time. Villy thought maybe the dice were because Semirog is in the room, right? It's life-threatening. It's a danger to his physical being, and that's why the dice are rolling. But I think at this point it is still just Matt that thinks he's equating the dice to a physical threat, but the fandom wiki at least also thinks that it's got something to do with any just major event. And they specifically also say best demonstrated when attempting to win over his future wife, not meeting his future wife. So let's look out in these chapters where Matt and Tuon are spending time together, if like what he says or like the situations they're in or her reactions to him, if they cause the dice to start or stop or anything like that, which will give us a pretty definitive answer.
All right.
Then the Seanchan had told Tylan that the Altaran soldiers with the red crisscrosses on their breastplates were as much hers as they were Seanchan now. Which is great for Tylan, who didn't really have many soldiers, but easy for the Seanchan to offer because they are, in fact, the soldiers that have not yet proven their worth and were at that stage expendable. So remember, I thought we had read about that when the Seanchan were commanding some Altaran troops in the battles with Rand and the Ashaman, like between Ilian and Ibudar, like when Rand was sort of like gatewaying around there and stuff. We got a point of view from, it could have been from Fury Karidi or from one of the other commanders we read about in that section, but they comment on the red crisscrosses on their thing. Are
but they wear it so proudly.
Yeah, they wear it so proudly, but they don't know what it means. And just here is another little hint that like the Seanchan are not quite as magnanimous or so as charitable as they might seem. Like, oh no, don't worry, all these troops are also yours, because actually we don't give a shit about them. Now, are you guys ready to kick yourselves?
I'll kick Billy.
The two nobles that were kidnapped by Aramilla were Nyan and Elenia on their way from Erangil. All these names should now be ringing bells. Like, oh yes, of course, Mo said that a million times, but all three of us blanked on them. I think we remembered Nyan, that was it. Jody, the storms that you were so fond of in the south are called Camaros.
Isn't that a car? Oh, that's a Camaro.
Sorry. It's a couple different vowels.
But
Billy was wondering why it's not snowing in Ibudar, and we said that whole south coast, Ibudar, it's along. Those storms happen along the whole Sea of Storms, which is that whole south coast. So Ibudar, Ilian, those places are all subjected to these hardcore, like rainy, wet, windy storms, but no snow. Then we spoke about Rizal and like whether she's Tom's age or not. I couldn't find a reference to her specific age, but it's Matt that notices her outfit for the Festival of the Birds when she comes to take Olver out. So Tylan calls her in to take Olver to the Festival of the Birds so that she can have Matt by herself, and she's already dressed in this super, super skimpy, like very revealing outfit. She later marries a Seanchan officer who buys her a vineyard. So like Rizal has like a part to play in the story and later has this really cool ending. And even Elaine in a later chapter that we have already covered after Rizal took over to the Festival of the Birds. Because remember, Elaine and Nynaeve and the gang were also in Ibudar. Elaine thinks to herself how fun it would be to wear a costume like Birgitte's or even Rizal, as long as she could have kept her mask on. To me, implying that it was rather scandalous, right? Like Elaine thought about it, like it would be fun to wear an outfit like that as long as no one knows who it is wearing it. So I'll admit, okay, none of that in itself necessarily tells us exactly what Rizal's age is, so who knows, but you know, maybe she's Tom's age, but I don't think so. I think she is still young enough to, like, you know, get married, wear skimpy outfits and that sort of stuff.
Oh, it's more scandalous because she is.
Then we were wondering about, remember there was a bunch of armies that was it Matt heard rumors of all these armies moving around in different countries. We were wondering, who is the army in Aradoman? And we said maybe it's Rodel Itarolde, and that Kerry had sent in a message previously saying to us, you know, Rodel being on the receiving end of these messages from Grandal, who's pretending to be the king. So when we do meet Rodel, he engages and fights a number of Dragonsworn armies plaguing Aradoman. So Dragonsworn armies in Aradoman and his own. But due to Grandal's confusing orders, he never manages to soundly defeat them. He meets with the Dragonsworn leaders under the White Ribbon later. So they have a truce and they speak and they agree to team up and fight the Seanchan instead. And at that point, later when Itarolde is in a city that is under siege and they have this whole guerrilla tactics fight.
In the streets,
he has an arm.
like
they're hiding in the buildings and stuff. And the Seanchan, he actually has this really, really cool plan. Like he has a bunch of peasants and civilians disguised as soldiers, retreat from the Seanchan armies towards a city in which he had already hid all his troops weeks earlier, but they all remained indoors. And when the Seanchan come into the city, his troops ambush them and kill them. And they kill, I think, like 3 or 4 times their number, but he loses half his men. And at that point, he's left with 150,000 men. So Rodel Ituralde, during that fight, has a force of 300,000 men and beats like hundreds of thousands of Seanchan. And the Seanchan leader at the end, Rodel, like puts his, like has him on the ground and like has a sword to his neck, and the guy sort of concedes and he says, that was a great plan. And then Rodel, in the typical like Bond villain, is like, so this is how I beat you. Like he says to them, your armies rely far too much on reports from Raken, who do not see what's happening on the ground. So the only point of view they have is from the sky. So he uses that very fact against them, and the guy concedes. He's like, well done. And then he gives Ituralde information about the Seanchan forces that will follow. It's just like this really cool, well thought out tactic, and it's a long sidetrack that I went down there to explain that Rodel has an army in Bayle Domon,
and a big one.
And that might have been like after he combined forces with the Dragon Sworn, or something like that. But yeah, a significant force. Right, that's it from me. So we can move on to listener contributions, and we'll start with the return of an old friend, Jonna Pierce, who said, I just wanted to drop a line and let you know I'm still here. I've just caught back up to where I had left off listening to the podcast for what I thought would be a brief time, but I've now realized it's been almost a year. Anywho, I started up episode 75, the beginning of Path of Daggers, and it felt like walking into a familiar place filled with friends I hadn't seen in a long time, and it brought me joy. Thanks again for all your efforts and the wonderful discussion you bring about a topic that's so much dear to my heart. Have a great day.
Yo, awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you. You have a great day too.
Yeah, great to hear from the old fans. Those ones that have been with us since episode 9, where I sound like I'm delivering a eulogy.
Yeah.
So from old friends to brand new friends, a new contributor called Zere. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And he goes, howdy mates. I started listening to your podcast literally a day or two after I finished the book series in early August 24. I was looking for a reread podcast to re-experience the series after finishing my first read-through, and I found y'all through Reddit and searching on my podcast app. Cool, so something's working for us. Our SEO is not as terrible as I feared. You're the first and only Wheel of Time podcast I've checked out so far, but have instantly become one of my favorite shows to listen to, regardless of the subject. Naturally, I started from the very beginning of your show, and I'm only a couple episodes into the second book now. Only gets better. I started the book series back in April, assuming I would finish it before my first child was due in July, which I quickly learned wouldn't be possible due to the massive number and length of the books. I absolutely love the series. Obviously, with you all having started in 2020, there have been some hilarious references, but also your guys' accents and pronunciations of words give me a wild laugh multiple times an episode. Cool. Your predictions for the show are also funny, knowing how things have turned out. You'll notice we've toned down the show comments in the podcast, Sarah. He says, once my wife started watching the show on Prime, I joined in and decided to dive into all the books after we were finished. The show was so good. Obviously, it could be a lot better, but all things considered, especially with how adaptations are usually handled, I think they did pretty solid. They brought a legendary series to a massive audience, many of whom will never commit to the books, and that's pretty cool, no matter what they do going forward. Well, maybe not considering seasons 5 to 8 of Game of Thrones. As a massive fan of A Song of Ice and Fire, who has listened to way too many podcasts about it, I feel so thrilled that I found another world to fall in love with in Wheel of Time. You guys are adding to that love with your analysis and antics. I look forward to hearing you all read my message on the show one day in the future, and I'm sure by then I will have forgotten that I sent one in. Lastly, my daughter's middle name is Zyrene, inspired by Fail's original name. I couldn't quite convince my wife enough to go with Avienda as a first name, but perhaps once she's done with the book, she'll agree if we have another daughter. You guys are doing amazing. Please keep it up. Much love, gents. Zere from Seattle, Washington.
Cool.
Yeah.
A rad message.
I love that.
Detailed.
Yes.
Well,
I did tell him that in episode 90 is when I responded by email. I said, episode 90 is when your message will be read.
it's a long wait for the guy. I was this close to naming my second kid Kal-El. Like this close. Christina was on board. It was like a last minute decision to change it. Yeah.
To Andy.
To Andy, yeah.
Sam. Wait, what? Last child, first child, middle child? I can't keep
Middle.
Second child. Middle.
Thought it was last.
I'd love to know how many people out there are named after Wheel of Time characters.
Not many.
I mean, it's only a matter of time
Because
until we run into
they'll
a
stand
Perrin,
out
right?
like a sore thumb. How do I pronounce that? Naive? What? Naive?
Are you going to call your child Nabliss?
The chosen.
Vinny just had a look of like, ooh.
Yeah.
I've always said to my girls that when we get a cat, I want to call it Meraxes, which is one of the dragons from A Song of Ice and Fire. It's not catching on. They're not fans. It would be something like Marshmallow or Pipsqueak. Okay, moving on then to Mr. Dependable Ian Yellen, who sends in the following. Matt chapters are the best. And while Tuon might be a dislikable character, she's actually kind of funny. Matt's first encounter with Tuon, when he realizes she's the daughter of the Nine Moons during the escape, he says that Tuon is his wife 3 times, which is what is required in Seanchan culture. And after that, in my interpretation, he is constantly trying to figure her out and build a somewhat normal relationship while he tries to play it cool and disinterested. We're all going to watch Matt and enjoy Matt flail his way through this courtship. It's going to be the only salvageable thing from that relationship for me. So Ian says, some stuff I wanted to say from the last couple of episodes. Number 1, the Ashaman being referred to by their last names is dehumanizing, but more like the military, where most people are referred to, even in fun and social settings, by their last names. I agree. Remember we were talking about Cadsuane, talking about Eben and Eben. Tell I watched Eben Etzebeth play rugby today. Eben Hopwell, like just Narish, like Jahar and Dharma, like calling them all by their first name. So I guess it makes sense for the Ashaman to go in the opposite direction. Calling each other by their surnames is, a very militaristic habit, which I'm sure probably came quite naturally to RJ, when he was writing these characters. So I think what I can then assume Ian's stance is that by going in the other direction, Cadsuane is humanizing them by using their first names and speaking about them as people. And that's what I like to believe, because believe it or not, this is another episode in which Cadsuane is not losing any points but gaining points in my book. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I agree. I think she wants
Fan,
to
good boy.
the same thing she wants to do with Rand. She wants to do with them all.
Yeah, teach them
She
to laugh
really
and
wants
cry. Or
Yeah, she wants to help them.
yeah, she does. So Ian continues. Someone asked last episode what Moraine was doing in the Borderlands after Cadsuane's musing. I'm guessing that was during the time of New Spring, when she originally found the Eye of the World, thus the fear that she couldn't find it again in the first book because she can only find it once. I think that is true. I mean, she is in the Borderlands when she meets Lan and takes him as a warder and everything, but I don't think New Spring spans the full 19, almost 20 years between, the prophecy of the dragon being spoken by Gitara Moroso and then finding Rand in Eamon's Field 20 years later. So New Spring certainly covers some of that.
Yeah. I don't remember anything from that book except like them meeting by the lake and throwing him in the water.
Splashing water on each other.
Yeah, like that's I remember that, but that's it.
Are we in an agreement now that we're doing it New Spring next?
We were going to wait for book 10, but after book 10, as it came out, publishing.
RJ has always said that the books are supposed to be like readable in any order, which I think is psycho. But his recommendation was that you read them in the order that they were published. And I think, Jody, you confirmed that New Spring was published after Crossroads of Twilight.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not next. One more to go.
Not next. Not next.
We might, Hey, we might juggle things around.
You don't know. Off air, we're talking about New Spring quite a lot, so who knows? I'll have to find a copy of it. I've only got the graphic novel.
So be bought.
Then Ian also asks, or says, the golem is probably still acting on Samael and Carradin's instructions, since it has only been about a month, approximately 37 days, between the invasion of Ilian and Matt running into the golem in Winter's Heart. Carradin wanted to kill Matt since the Dark Friend social. Remember when Carradin sees Matt in the street, he gets this like automatic message in his head from his Samael, like he goes into like, like this trigger event happens. And Samael wanted Elaine because she was searching for the cache and important to Rand. So my response to Ian is, I think it's been 6 weeks that they said in the last episode. They said 6 weeks, and since the Seanchan arrived, and I think they used 10-day weeks in the Wheel of Time, right? So it's more like 60 days. Like it's been a while, but that's being pedantic, and I think Ian's assessment stands, and it's pretty much aligned with what we thought as well, that the golem was still acting on orders from Samael and Caradon. And then the last thing Ian wanted to clarify is King Rodran is not using the band as his army, but is having the band be the quote-unquote other army to trick the noble houses of Mirande to unite under him.
Okay.
Which makes sense.
The Ruse
so I had that wrong.
army.
Yes. Yeah. Kind of like how Egwene was using them
That's
as well.
why they
right?
were left
Two armies
with the
join out.
warning
Just a
to
whore
not
army.
get pulled into a war.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks, Ian. A font of knowledge and context as usual.
I like it when people clear things up for us that's in words written down on pages and we still don't understand it. It's amazing.
I mean, there's a lot going on. I don't want to make excuses, but when you're reading the story and sort of making notes and stuff about it as well, you can like sort of jump to and from the text and some of that flow and context and sort of,
Well,
broader
that really
themes in the text.
depends
Can go
on
missing.
you. I mean, some people can read and remember.
Yes, for
everything.
me.
Some people's just like me.
Unfortunately for us, all three of us are the same. But we can rely on people like Ian to
Jody,
set us
he was
straight.
not even listening.
All right then, Scott Wilson with the two-prong attack once again, starting with an audio message that goes like this.
Hi guys, Scott Wilson here. Just listened to Carrie on the Aes Sedai and Kin and had a few thoughts on channelers. 1. Only the Aes Sedai need the Oaths, because the Kin, Wise Ones, and Windfinders are all respected. 2. All the stories we hear about Aes Sedai in the earlier books make them out to be figures to be feared and distrusted, so the Oaths really do nothing for them. And number 3, a little off topic, but the Damani would have no chance against the Aes Sedai, no matter how strong or skilled they are, because they cannot link. Linked Aes Sedai would easily shield them.
Okay, Jody, did you have some thoughts there?
Point 2 that he made about like this, the Oaths doing nothing for them. I don't think that's true. I'd have to disagree. I think without the Oaths, they would deserve that reputation even more. I think things would be worse. I think this is like it's not the best option, but it's like a dam. It's a stopgap. It's a control on them.
I agree.
So, yeah.
I mean, maybe Swan has sort of won us over with her whole speech to Egwene, right? Like, it's what makes them Aes Sedai. Like, I mean, but I mean, there is some truth to that. I mean, imagine the Aes Sedai with no
restraint.
Restraint, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, they could just do magic and control the world and manipulate and
I
lie.
can get behind that.
Okay.
Sometimes
Lying
you
and
get a little bit of
manipulating.
chaos in the world just to balance everything out.
Of course you do. And point 3.
Spoken like a true dark friend.
Not a surprise there. And point 3, yes, agree, 100%. Linking is far superior to not linking.
But I mean, I think it will be quick for them to learn should the ensuing battle commence.
But what happens to the Sul'dam?
But,
then?
yeah.
Are they also brought in?
Also linked in. It's a
They're
circle
all
of
connected to the channeler, like so. And
all
are
connected via
channelers
link
to the
themselves
power of 2.
via LinkedIn, yeah. I said I started it.
But they straight up don't know it, right? Like, they don't know about linking because all their channelers are one person on a leash.
Well, technically
That's
they
it.
linked.
Yes.
Yeah.
To a very inexperienced Sul'dam, who then has the control of the flows and doesn't know how to weave, doesn't really help them. So yeah, I mean, I thought similar to what you were guys saying. The first point was that the kin and the sort of the Windfinders and the Wise Women are all channelers who are already respected. I think the Aes Sedai in some circles are also respected, but also somewhat feared. The Aes Sedai maybe, I don't know, have made themselves more visible or accessible than maybe some of the others, or maybe less so. and therefore people are mistrustful of them because they are so like foreign and.
I think it's the mystery that people fear. Like that, it's not because of what they've directly done. They didn't say, "Oh, that Aes Sedai murdered that king and took over the country." Like it's fact. But was there manipulation behind the scenes? They don't know. So it's that unknown. I think that gives them the aura of fear.
Yeah. And then Scott also sent in a message via the website to say, "Hi guys, I forgot to add in the other message I left how much Jody made me laugh when he said I was getting into his chapter. You guys are doing a great job. I feel like part of the show. Thanks, guys. P.S. I love my beefy boy t-shirts."
Cool.
Nice. That is my favorite one, Scott. And yes, you are part of the show. So stay out of Jody's chapters.
I'll let this one
Scott
slide. But I warn you about getting into Willy's chapters. He's super sensitive about that. Willy does not allow anything like that.
I send over one of my friends.
The dark ones. Okay, let's move on then to our last voice note from our listener contributions, which is a rare appearance from friend of the show, Dr. Rowan. He just got his doctorate in marine biology. Yes, congratulations, Rowan.
Congratulations,
but he still
Rowan.
found the time. He still found the
haggle
time
with me.
to send in. Yes, to send in this message in which he provokes Willy.
Hey guys, it's been quite a long time. I just caught up with the podcast again finally after having a bit of a time out reading The Way of Kings from the Stormlight Archive. Just a couple of things. First thing is, I can't remember how many episodes, maybe 3 episodes ago, when Willy was talking about Fail and her group being kidnapped by the Shido, he most certainly referred to Roland as Rowan. So expect a lawsuit in the mail. Second thing was just finished listening to the latest episode, and I don't think you guys were talking about Matt and his mixture of all his memories and stuff, and the reason why he hadn't recognized Bayle Domon. I couldn't be bothered to go back and re-listen, but I don't think you touched on the fact that, I mean, you mentioned that it was after Shadar Logoth, but I don't think you mentioned that this was after he had gone a bit mental and he had all these holes in his memory because of more death. So yeah, I couldn't remember if you'd mentioned that.
Okay, so firstly, Rowan, you're assuming that being compared to Roland is a bad thing. I kind of like him a little bit. But actually, no, wait. Didn't I just say in the episodes in which he was like hitting Fail and like treating them badly that I didn't like him? I take that back. I think what I'm getting confused by is the fact that he is, out of all the Shido, maybe the most likable.
I couldn't understand
or the brotherless, to be fair.
that listener's message that was sent in. This accent is just too powerfully. I just didn't understand any words.
As for Matt and his memories, I think I can't remember if we mentioned it.
I don't
or
recall.
Not, but
I think, yeah.
What I will say is when Matt meets Bayle Domon, it's literally hours after he's grabbed the dagger, right? During the flight from Shadar Logoth. Like he's just taken the dagger. So at that point, his memories can't be that scrambled. Not yet. I think he did spend a couple of days.
Memories, but his memories get like scrambled because of the dagger later on. So the memory might have been formed, but then scrambled.
Exactly, and I'll touch on that in a sec. He did spend quite a couple of days on the boat, right? Like it wasn't just overnight. It was like a couple of days to get to Whitebridge or wherever they got off. Yeah. And he was acting shifty on the boat. Do you remember? Like he had the dagger and he didn't want anyone to touch it. And he was sort of like off by himself. Like it was already taking effect. So fair enough. But what I'd always thought did the real damage to his memories was the actual healing that he received from the Aes Sedai at the White Tower. Because it's immediately after that he goes, wow, my memory is so patchy. I can't Like there's large swaths of that time where he was under the influence of the dagger that he couldn't remember anymore. And to me, it was almost like they had to cut the evil out of him, and some of those memories were sort of like cut out with it. That's how I'd always imagined it. But
or he was just in such a bad way at that time that the evil had eaten his memories, like eating him from the inside out.
I mean, he was already he was in rough shape at the Queen's Blessing when Moraine and Lan and those guys find him. Remember, he's in the bed upstairs, and he tries to stab Moraine with a dagger, and Lan, like without blinking, like just catches his hand and holds it like rock steady, like unmoving. And Moraine is sitting there. She doesn't even flinch at the dagger either, but she sees what it is and then sort of does a temporary healing on him there before they go to the tower with it. But yeah, Matt was already at that point. He was well under the evil spell of the dagger. Okay, so that's it for callbacks. Let's get down to business in previously on Blood and Ashes. Matt, Tom, Beslin, and Olver head back to the city from Valen Luca's menagerie. The dice are tumbling in Matt's head, so he knows something bad is going to happen. He notes the city hasn't taken much damage, but the Seanchan are rocking up in droves. He also notes that this is not just an invading force, it's a full-blown resettlement with farmers and common folk outnumbering the soldiers, Sul'dam and Damane. At the gates into the city, the heads of lawbreakers are displayed, among them Nested and Ray's two moons, the former mistress of the ships Telatha and Mir, and Baroque, her master of the blades. Matt is not ready to go back to the Terrasen Palace, and he wants Tom and Beslin to take Olver to his reading lessons with Roselle, and he warns that Beslin is not to do anything that will end up with his and Tylan's heads on spikes. While walking around the docks, he hears rumors that the Seanchan had a fight with some Ashaman a week ago. All the inns and taverns are overcrowded, so Matt decides to head back to the palace, but takes the alleys, crisscrossing the whole city rather than the streets. While he is in a deserted side alley, the golem appears and attacks him. Matt uses the foxhead medallion to burn the creature several times. A man's shout diverts the golem's attention and it flees. Matt walks up to the man who introduces himself as Noel Charon, who we know is Jane Fastrider. He does not have a place to stay for the night, so Matt invites him into the palace where he can find some space with the surviving Red Arms, as thanks for saving Matt's life. They head there, and in order to avoid being questioned, they head in through a stable gate. The palace that was once Tylan's is now only hers in name. The High Lady Suroth Sabel Meldarath has taken residence there, as well as several other Seanchan of the High Blood. In a yard they pass while headed into the palace. Several Sul'dam are exercising their damane. One of them is Teslin Baradon. It has been a month and a half, Matt recalls, since the Seanchan took Ibudar. Once in the palace, Matt introduces Noel to the Red Arms, and Noel starts telling them how they encountered the golem and elaborately as any gleeman. Matt advises his men to take a ship to Ilion and to take Olver, Tom, Julian, and Matt's two body servants, Nerim and Lopen, with them. They reject that idea. Noel notices Matt's reputation with the men and the loyalty they show him, and says that Matt's name might end up in the history books. Matt leaves them to get himself clean before Tylan sees him, all muddied from the fight with the golem, and in the hallways, every servant offers to draw him a hot bath and fetch clean garments. All the while, the dice are still rattling in his skull. At a corner, Julian almost walks into him, and Matt informs him about what he told the others a while earlier, but Julian replies he has a reason yet to stay, and Matt immediately knows it's because of a woman. Matt heads directly to Tylan's rooms. As he opens the door, he is surprised not only by who is present, but the dice in his head have come to such a thunderous stop as never before, though it seems nothing has happened. In the room with Tylan are Suroth, Tuon, Selucia, and Anath, who barely has the all-too-familiar Seanchan drawl. Tuon is displeased with Suroth because she has told her the city was safe, but Matt looks like he's been attacked. He replies that his current look is from falling into the mud, and that he was injured a month and a half ago when the Seanchan armies landed in Ibudar. Tuon examines him thoroughly and asks what price Tylan would want for him, but she says that Matt is a free man. Tuon announces that she will raise Tylan to the blood and wants to show her the range of Altara that is now under her control. Before they go, Matt tells Tylan that he has been attacked by the golem. Her concern vanishes when she tells him she wants to see him in the pink ribbons when she returns. For the next few days, Matt collects information about the Seanchan and their exotic creatures. He listens to a lot of gossip that flows into Ibudar with the merchants. When there's a mention of Rand, those odd colors begin swirling in Matt's head. There are rumors of a man found one night with his throat ripped out, and Matt can immediately tell this is the golem. The day after the golem had attacked Matt, he set out in search for a place to store some of his gold. He ends up in the Wandering Woman, where Mistress Anan tells him she has some space under her kitchen floors. Back in the Terrasen Palace, Matt orders Lopen and Nerim to take some of his clothes and a pocket full of gold to the inn daily. Matt also finds a bell founder, though this fellow does not know anything about illuminators, and Eludra will still tell him nothing about her guild secrets. Once, when he enters Tylan's quarters, Tuon is there examining his Ashandari. She wants to buy it, but he refuses to sell. After several days, Matt wants to check on his gold and clothes in the Wandering Woman, and when he arrives there, Mistress Anan is not there. So he waits for her while Enid the cook gives him something for breakfast. As he is finished, Sital returns with another woman. She sends everyone else out of the kitchen and asks Enid to keep guard because it turns out the woman with her is Jolene, who has been hiding from the Seanchan ever since they arrived. Enter Egeanin, now a captain of the Green, and Bayle Domon, her butler. They force their way partly into the kitchen and demand the best room in the inn because Suroth wants her close at hand, but Sital tells them that the inn's best rooms are already taken by Captain of the Air Lord Abaldar Yulan and Banner General Furik Karidi of the Death Watch Guard. During this outburst, Matt pulls Jolene onto his lap and starts turning up the PDA to an 8. Also, the Seanchan officer doesn't notice Jolene's ageless face. When Egeanin and Bayle leave, Matt thinks something about the man tugged at his memory, but he can't quite place it. When they've gone, Jolene starts weeping and Matt follows Sital down to the cellar carrying a crying Jolene. Mistress Anan wants to help the Aes Sedai and had told her that Matt would get her out of the city when he leaves. Matt, back at the Tarazan Palace, enters the attic where the Damano are held, looking for Teslin, aka Judith Lucy. I sent a photo of Judith Lucy in our team in our group.
It's open on my phone right now.
That's what I imagine Teslin looks like. He wants to help her get out and ends up agreeing to take Edicina along as well. As he's on his way from the Damano kennels, he bumps into Tuon. To avoid rousing suspicion, he tells her that he wanted to take a pastry to a windfinder. Tuon is pleased to see that he is kind to Damano. Finally, he realizes he needs the cunning minds of Tom and Julian to plan their escape. And that brings us to chapter 20, called Questions of Treason. Vil, can you answer these questions via a quick summary, please?
Yes, this will be a very quick summary because we're dealing with
I've heard this before.
Dum, dum, dum. All right. We with Bethamin. She is a doggy trainer. In the doggies, she's a Sul'dam in the Damani training circles. That's highly skilled, well loved. She harbors a few secrets, but she tries to be perfect. Anyway, she's rolling around with Rena. We remember her. She was one of the Sul'dam that got captured by the girls and put onto the silver collars. And this Bethamin is the one that found both Rena and Seta. So there's a lot of musing and this all coming out as she basically goes on a patrol, or not a patrol, a last check of the kennels, see that the girls are all in good shape, tails wagging and teeth clean. Wow, that was a tongue twister.
Tags wailing.
Tags wailing. And then, a lot of background thinking about Zuki, the one, and it's really inconsequential. The only thing that is really consequential is when she thinks about Tuli, who he knows when Egwene was there at Termin Head. But for the most of it, she goes through this process. She's got some coin to spend and chores done, so she wants to get out in town, but she can't stop thinking about this whole Rena and Seta situation and how it all played out. Basically going down the line of events where eventually Seta hangs out with Suroth now, and that's where she is. Suroth for sure knows that the Sul'dams can be collared because Alwyn saw and then reported. So she's going.
Bethamin found Rena and Seta first, didn't do anything, ran away in terror. And after that, Alwyn came, who was just a Sul'dam at that point as well. She found them as well, and she told Suroth. So Alwyn told Suroth and was then raised to Sojin because of her helping. Bethamin ran away, and then was caught by Egeanin, and was held captive by Egeanin, and then Egeanin led her free. And now she's come all the way back, and she's a Sul'dam again, treating the Damana exactly like she did before. Not a fan.
Full circle.
Don't know if you can tell from my
got a job.
Fuck Beth.
Anyway, she tries to be perfect. She tries to be the perfect Sul'dam. Anyway, she eventually, through all of this musings that explain all of this that we just brought up, reaches the inn where she's informed that there's a man with blue eyes waiting for her that doesn't look too bad, but there's also rules in the inn, and then a little sidetrack about the rules in the inn. Anyway, she goes to her room, and there she finds the man reading her diary, to be the described man. He was looking for her, to which the diary was locked in a box with a very good lock that she has the only key for, that's in her pouch. He then shows her his badge. He has got his crafting badge. KGB badge.
Oh, hey Dougie reference there for our other parent listeners.
And where was I now? Crafting badge. Yes, and when she sees his crafting badge, she's like, oh, crap. And she dies a little inside. But he then starts a line of questioning that makes her realize that he is not after her. He's after Eggie, as we know.
Eggie sandwich.
Yep. Old mate that's sitting there, that's Almurat Mor, the seeker of the truth. Now, we've dealt with him before. He got knocked out.
Not related to Fedwin Mor.
No. Unrelated.
Is his name Old Murat?
Almurat.
All right.
Anyway, he got knocked out when he tried to accost Tom by Julian and that crowd when they were up at the last meeting grounds. So he's had a run in. He knows about Nynaeve and who was there, Elaine. So there's the whole thing about Aes Sedai colluding with Egeanin is his investigation. And he's really speaking too much about his case to her, to be honest. I'd like he should play his cards a little bit closer.
Waxing lyrical, yeah.
Like absolutely blurting out like how high he thinks. So it kind of makes me think that he's the special agent, but special with a capital S on the side. And they give him like this case to get busy with.
He's like, what is his dad, the chief of police or something?
Well, he was working for Turak.
Yes.
He was taking his orders from High Lord Turak.
And
he's like, in this chapter, he's talking about like, oh, what a great man he was and everything. Pity that he was killed. And then the chapters in which we read about him in Tanchico, he is in, do you remember that wine bar that we first meet Carradine meeting the kings and stuff with like the wrought iron windows and the cool breeze making people sitting there. Egeanin was spying on a bunch of people, and then Almurat Mor was there spying on Egeanin in that place. He goes and he speaks to her. Remember when Bethamin is in Egeanin's cellar, in her house, he's talking to Egeanin in the kitchen and leaves. And then she goes down immediately after that, and soon after that she lets Bethamin go. So yeah, he's been around. He's been on the scene, and he's been following Egeanin for a while.
Yeah, he's building up a long case. He's gone off badge.
Yeah, he gives a sort of hand wavy reason for saying, okay, I don't usually do this, but I'll tell you my whole plan anyway, Bethamin. I think the thinking is like he needs to tell her everything so that she understands the gravity and the importance of her befriending again and getting information out of her. But now I'm getting into your content, Yevel.
No, that's all good because there's a lot of it, and I summarized very little of it. Yes, so that all goes down, and then she agrees to it, and it's really the end of that chapter. But
oh, there you go.
Yeah, she's relieved because she thinks he's here to get her, right? Or like that she knows the secret. She fears that he might know the secret about the Sul'dam that she knows and only Suroth knows, that Bethamin knows, but she knows about herself, Suroth, and Alwyn knowing the secret about the Sul'dam. And now she can't risk this guy finding out that same secret because she can't count on him having the same opinion as her and Suroth and Alwyn, that everything should just stay exactly as it is, just pretend you don't know anything and nothing's going to change. So she's afraid of what, it's why she goes to Egeanin and sort of spills the beans to Egeanin, because the seeker is on the trail and she actually wants to prevent him.
She also carries the risk of the fact that she's a runaway, like that whole part of it, as well. So she's got quite the collection of skeletons in her closet. That the seeker goes off on a little sidetrack, she'd be like, "Boom, all right,
cool, yes, that thing that you said. Yes. Focus on that. Yeah, I'll help you. Sure." And then run straight to Egeanin. Jody, do you have anything you wanted to say about this chapter.
I've got plenty to say about it in the next chapter.
Oh. Okay.
In my chapter.
I've got a couple little bits and pieces here. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but I don't have a lot of time for Bethamin. Don't particularly like her. Even though, like, knowing all this stuff, she still thinks to herself, she knew what Aes Sedai were like. You know, it's when she thinks about the Aes Sedai and these lands sort of working behind the scenes and influencing kings and assassinating kings, and that's just how all Aes Sedai are. Like, she still believes the rhetoric that she's been fed her whole life. She even still believes that Tessie, who is Teslin, would be happier as a broken Damane than as a free Aes Sedai. She'll be happier for it. No, you psycho.
And then
Moritz
she
has
gives
made
her
a long list of them.
hard
Reasons
candy.
not to like Bethamin.
She also wants to go shopping locally. That's going to make her feel better. And maybe she'll buy one of those interesting knives that she sees the woman wearing around here. If only she can find one without all the gems in it and stuff. Just showing like a complete lack of understanding of the culture. Like RJ just giving us another reason to not like her. She also mentions like there are hints about the Sul'dam being able to channel, because some of the Sul'dam talk about being able to sense another woman channeling. Or maybe even sometimes thinking that maybe they can see the weave somewhat or get a sense of what the weaves are. And that even among the Sul'dam, it's sort of assumed that after years of using the Adam, you become so in tune with them that you can see them. Never once did the thought cross their mind that, oh, shit, maybe I can channel. And that's why I can see the weaves.
Also, they've been tested, and they believe everything they're told. You know, so
And they
they were
stopped
tested.
being
You're
tested at a
not a
certain age.
Damane. Yeah, so
At 16, I think.
they have it. They have a test. They passed it.
Yeah. And then never again. Captain of the Green. It's Egeanin's new rank.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is? Did you look it up?
No. Pray tell.
I envision like a shield emblem of a green pitch and a putter, like on the chest of the Captain of the Green.
If you got a good short game, you named Captain of the Green. I for sure thought you were going for a cricket pitch there, Bill.
No. Just like I had the you know, the putter, like the Captain of the Green sounds a lot more
It does.
golfy to me.
Yeah.
I
agree.
It is a naval rank, and it is equivalent to that of a banner general. So quite
so
high
she
rank,
is with Banner General Furyk. She's on the same level as him.
on par. But he's Death Watch guards, and he's one of the ones that came over with Tion.
He's got connections.
Oh no, he didn't come over with Tion. Scratch that. Belie that remark. It is above the rank of ship's captain, but below the rank of captain of the gold. A captain of the green can command either a great ship or a small squadron of ships. Egeanin got promoted after handing over the Dominion bands to Suroth, which sucks. Joe, you'll cover some of this. But she got caught and she had no choice, right? So she had to give them. They were given those bands to go drop them in the deepest part of the ocean. Nynaeve and Egwene gave them to Egeanin and Domon. So, as I said before, Almurat Mor, the Seeker, when he questions Egeanin in The Shadow Rising in Tanchica, right? Book 4, 5 books ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Egeanin sort of blurts out, like, when he says, I'm, you know, or shows a badge or his tattoo or whatever, Egeanin blurts out, oh, I didn't hear about this happening or that you were coming. And immediately it sort of reprimands himself. Of course you wouldn't know, because that's not something that he would advertise, right? Like, who are you to know that he was coming? Because at that point, Egeanin and other Seanchan soldiers were deployed in Tanchico to round up the Damane that was scattered from Falme. Suroth had sent them from the Bay of Cantorin. They were in Tanchico, and now this guy's also arrived, and she thought she would have heard from some of the other informants there that the Seeker has arrived. But he says that you didn't hear about me arriving because I snuck into the city with a smuggler named Bayle Domon.
Really? Oh, I didn't notice that.
Me too. And it's before Egeanin and Bayle meet.
Yeah, okay.
Or had she already boarded his ship, something like that. But I mean, it's early days. It's certainly before they sort of paired up. Oh no, she boarded his ship early days in Falme. She takes Domon to Turak with all his little trinkets.
Yes.
So she had met
She's
Bayle
got the
Domon.
seals.
So after that, she's in Tanchico. Fucking Almurat Mor is coming in via Bayle Domon. Bayle Domon is all over the place. Like he's talking to everyone. Matt, Tom and Rand, like in the beginning, and then all this Seanchan interaction, which I thought was cool.
They call him a nexus being. Like this whole plot would fall apart without him. Nobody would have met anyone. No one would be in the right place at the right time.
Almurat Mor says to Bethamin here, he spins that whole big, that whole theory, right? So in that spiel to Bethamin, he says to her that Egeanin had killed Sul'dam and didn't bother denying it when he spoke to her in Tanchico. And I was like, did she say that? So I went and I read that whole interview between them again. So Egeanin doesn't say to Mor that she has killed any Sul'dam, not explicitly where we can see it said. There's a section of that interview where she tells him a bunch of stuff, but the description is she tells him about like the places she's been and the forces she's seen, and sort of just imparting information, not talking about specifically the Sul'dam hunt. But she does think about her orders in that scene back in Shadow Rising, her orders from Suroth to send any Sul'dam she finds back to Cantorin while they regroup there, or as a last resort, kill them. So Suroth had said to Egeanin, you can kill Sul'dam if they're not going to be sent back to Cantorin. And maybe some of that came out to Mor, and he has now twisted that, or in his own mind, what he wanted to hear was, instead of sending them back, she's killing them. Because he says in this conversation to Bethamin that the other people that were sent to find Sul'dam did find some. Egeanin found 0. And when he spoke to her about it, she said she killed all of them. He also mentions here that Suroth has a collared damane that used to be an Aes Sedai. I read somewhere that Suroth has been taking her orders from Semirhage. So like while I was trying to find out who this Aes Sedai that's in a household or in a staff or what do you call a collection of damane? Her
kennels.
Her pack. So if Suroth is taking her orders from Semirhage, but she doesn't recognize that Anath is Semirhage, then Semirhage must be using a disguise either when she's meeting and giving orders to Suroth, or this disguise, this Anath, is not actually, doesn't look exactly like Semirhage. But I think it's the former. I think she's probably appearing to Suroth in disguise, much like Messana's been doing, but Alzamon does it all the time, like all the Forsaken, Lanfear and Asmodean did it, remember, like when they were arriving in Tel'aran'rhiod in Rand streams and stuff. They do all obscure what they look like. I think Grandal also does it a bunch. So I'm assuming that's what she did. I just thought it was funny that Suroth is here talking to Tuon, like, you really need to punish Anath, right? Like, you really can't. And meanwhile, it's the Forsaken that she's taking her orders from. Also, she used to take her orders from Ishamal directly, because when Liandrin and Suroth were both sort of exchanging Egwene and Nynaeve and Elaine from the tower, they spoke about their mutual master, and I'm pretty sure that at that point that was Ishamal. I don't know what I based that on, but
it was.
Sure it was. Do we know who the Aes Sedai in Suroth's kennels is?
I jumped straight to, heart-faced Red Aja, but she's not collared.
No. She
he mentions here that she's got Marath Daman in her household, and that's who. Because Liandrin in that meeting, do you remember you guys even corrected me when Liandrin or when Suroth arrived in Ibudar and Keshav Mirage or whatever. He notices that Olwen, who's now Sojin, used to be a Sul'dam, has a damane on a leash, but then also Liandrin is there. So there's already rumors coming out here that there is a, as they call Marath Daman, in Suroth's household as a Dakoval instead of as a damane. I'm noticing that we don't really have many sympathetic characters from the Seanchan. Bethamin knows that the damane treatment is wrong, and yet she persists with her views and actions. She even returns here to her normal Sul'dam training, which is awful. The only reason she comes clean to Egeanin is because she's afraid of being found out by the Seekers. And only Egeanin seems to have had a true realization about the damane, right? Like, she went against orders because she knows it's right. And even then, we don't get a huge amount of POV chapters from Egeanin, right? So any Seanchan people we're reading about are usually not sympathetic characters. She's also still, again, got some interesting thoughts about slavery and property and stuff, as Jody will cover in the next chapter. But later in the story, she becomes Laelwyn shipless. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
And maybe she eschews her Seanchan culture completely then. She has a super cool final duty that I won't spoil here, but it is rad. So what I can say to both of you is feel free to like Egeanin because she does come around and she isn't a Seanchan scumbag the whole way through. So speaking of liking Egeanin, should we get into chapter 21 then, called A Matter of Property, not prophecy, as I said in the last episode. Joe, can you help us out with a matter of summary?
Wow. Okay. Yes, I can. I did actually make a summary of this, and I wrote it all down on pieces of paper. Edgy. We're just talking about her. She's lying on her bed, checking out her new lacquered fingernails, while Bayle is not chilling. He's not a guy that chills. I've never got the sense that you'll find him like lying around somewhere. He's complaining away about how fast his Seahawk is, and he's talking about how they escaped earlier and had to give over the Bayle Domon and all that, the whole situation about how they lost it. She's just zoning out. She's wondering why Suroth made her report to her here in this place. She raised her to the captain of the Green like a fool. Apparently, it's like she wasn't expecting this for another 10 years in her career, so everything's happening really, really fast. And now she's just sitting around, like Suroth did all the stuff for her, raised her up, and now she's just doing nothing. So she's wondering, something's up. And she's also worried about the Seeker. And I was like, well, this woman's sharp. You should be worried about the Seeker. He's actively investigating you. So she's brought out of her reveries by Bayle asking her a question. He's like, well, he's going on about how they could have outrun the Seanchan ships and had they encountered on their way to Ibadar when they were called back from Cantoran. So they were carrying the Bayle Domon, like as we know. Bayle wanted to chuck it overboard, but they were intercepted by the Seanchan before they could. And Edgy had to convince them that they were a gift for the Empress, and that's the only way they let them through. Like, this is stuff I'm trying to figure, because it's all in the past. They're just talking about it. We don't see it happen. So correct me if I'm wrong on my assumptions here. And then somehow during this process, Bayle was auctioned off as a slave, and Edgy had to buy him back. Happen. Yeah, I know, but is this what happening? What I'm understanding from what happened in their recounting of events? Yes. So in Cantoran, like the Seafolk Island over there, Bayle put up a fuss, and they said, we're auctioning you off as a slave.
I can't remember.
Then.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was in Cantoran, but yeah, I mean, it could easily have been. It wasn't Tanchico.
No, I mean, and they didn't go all the way back to Seanchan.
No.
So yeah, because there's a lot of people being auctioned off on blocks recently in these chapters, So I was just wondering, where was he auctioned off? So apparently it was in Cantoran.
And when was he taken slave? Like when they took his boat?
On that, yeah, right then, because he was fighting, and Edgy was telling him to calm down and just like handing them over and trying to explain that they got a gift for the Empress. I don't know why they weren't apparently supposed to be on the waters then. Like, why would they stop them?
They're together with the bands, and then she gets promoted.
Yeah,
and he gets sold into slavery.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. Like, maybe they just like they are Seanchan, so they're just the first thing, sell them to slavery. Like, they don't even consider it. Like, that's their go-to maneuver. I don't know, because he was on his ship, not a Seanchan ship. Ship, and that might have been a determining factor.
Egeanin was with him on that ship, so like,
but not in an official capacity. Maybe she tried to convince them that, look, we're on a secret mission to give these to the Empress and blah 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 blah. And that's how she got through.
Well done, promoted, but you still use slavery.
Yeah. So anyway, she had to buy him back because apparently a lot of other women there had the same taste in men as she did. So she had to buy him back for a shit ton of money. She has a lot of money, it turns out. Yeah, the bargaining was fierce.
So got the girls liking him. They were like throwing their cards at the stage.
He's a decisive man, strong.
An exotic accent.
Yes. Yeah. So, regardless of all what happened here, it turns out that the Bayle Domon ended up in the hands of Suroth. So that means that they are now in the hands of Semirhage, which we know she has them later on. Because some shit goes down. That's only the next book, right? Oh, please tell me it's the next book. Probably only book 11, isn't it?
I think so.
Where he loses his hand and fights that Semirhage and all that stuff. Anyway, we'll see. So Edgy changes the subject to things to do in Ibudar. Like, hey, you've been here a couple of times. What's fun to do? Just to get him to shut up about that. So he tells her all the festivals, but he knows that they're going to be a bit too risque for her sensibilities. She doesn't even like to see people kissing in public. Imagine if she saw Rizel's costume. But she'd have to... Oh, yes. And then it says maybe they can find a wise woman as well. And it's someone who can marry them. But she would have to free him first as Sojin. And then apparently only other Sojin can marry Sojin. There's a whole bunch of things. But besides that, she's freaked out because he just casually dropped that he wants to marry her. So she leaps out of bed. She's all flustered, spewing excuses until he opens his arms and she comes running to him. And it's a very tender moment. She's hardcore, but they're a good couple. So... Moritz, I was already on the edgy train. Like, I like this. I like this woman.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
But now that I know even better things are coming, even more so. So, funnily enough, she's a bit flustered because she's already thought about marrying him. She decided it before they left Tanchico, apparently. He's quite the catch. So they are interrupted by a knock at the door. They jump apart, straighten clothes, buttons are being done up and whatnot. Skirts are being straightened. And it's all Bethamin. She's acting on those orders from the Seeker pretty quickly because she knows, as we all do, you don't dawdle with those guys. So she goes down on her knees, and asks for private audience. Edgy tells her that she can speak freely in front of Bayle. Of course, man, he's my surgeon. Bethamin immediately blabs about the Seeker and her orders from him with pleading eyes, like Betty, as we'll call her from now on, knows that if she doesn't help Edgy escape this guy, he will eventually learn about the basement in Tanchico, and then everybody's going down. So, shit. She explains, so this explains the weird orders, is what Edgy thinks. Like, that's why she was told to wait here, for the Seeker to arrive and to be investigated. So she thinks, no, I'm between a rock and a hard place with Suroth and the Seeker and all of this. So Betty goes on to summarize that whole interrogation that they just had in the previous chapter. So he's like connecting Edgy and Bayle to Suroth and maybe even Tuan, and there's some plot. Like he's convinced there's some plot between the Aes Sedai. So he's right, like as we know, he's right about the players. Like he's got all the guilty parties, but he's connecting them in ways that are not quite correct. So he's confusing some plot lines. And he importantly doesn't know yet about the basement's situations. So that leads her to mention Rena and Seta, Betty, that is. And Edgy's like, wait, who are these two people? So Betty looks away. She's afraid to answer, which gives Edgy an answer. And she's like, they were Sul'dam like you. They were collared like you. Hey, so like now there's more players. There's more chance of this getting out. So Betty tells her that they are in Suroth's service, not allowed to use an Adam because Suroth knows. So Edgy's the beliefs here are being broken down. Like we said, she's changing, shattering her beliefs one by one. She doesn't think like that all Marath Daman are bad. She even says it out loud, like not every woman who can channel deserves to be collared, and that's a major Seanchan belief, like a core belief. And she's already like, meh, she's got
she
some of them, but not all of them. So she's not 100% there yet. And then also about what about like Suroth? Is she hiding Rena and Seta to protect the Empire, or is it for her own gains and whatnot? I was like, wow, you'll find out soon enough. Betty's like, we should kill the Seeker. It's a good plan. She did actually tell Nynaeve and Elaine back in the day, you should kill the Seeker when they had the chance, but they were too naive to do it. And he has another one. It's like, yes, I know it's a good idea to kill him, but we'll have to think about that. They make a plan for Betty to come and see her every day, because that's what the Seeker would expect. And then they bundle her out of the door. So once old Betty's gone, Edgy throws her cup against the fireplace. Lovely cups that her dad had given her when she gained her captaincyship. Captaincyship? There
Captaincy.
You go. But she also gets a ship. That's what I was trying to say. So she's in some real deep shit now. Like, that Seeker's onto her. Like, she knows, like, he doesn't have the story straight, but what he's come up with is even fucking worse. And who's going to believe her? They're going to believe the Seeker. So she's got to do something about this. Bayle simply offers to kill him. Yeah. But she tells him that, look, you won't even find him, let alone kill him. Like, you're never going to find this guy. to lay your hands on him. She's like, she thinks you're good with your hands, but with a sword, not so much. So Edgy walks over to her desk to write some papers to free Bayle as Sojourn. She's like, she's pulling a mat here. Like, I'm in danger. You guys get out of my way. Here's some money. Go someplace safe. She's going to make him a free man. And she'll give him some money, like I said, and she'll leave on the first ship out of here. She's talking to him like, okay, you got to, this is the plan. She's mid-sentence when Bayle like swipes the page out from under her pen and throws it into the fireplace. It's like, if you free me, you can't give me orders. So shut up. I was like, smooth Bayle. She's serious now, putting on her quarter-deck voice. She's ready to rip him a new one, but he just talks over her. He's going to find her a crew. Like, we're not running away. You're not sending me anywhere. I'll go find a crew. We'll worry about the ship later. First, we've got to find a good crew. And then they'll get the fuck out of Dodge. So he tells her that
assemble a crew.
Pirate man Bayle.
Yes.
Step 1, man. Assemble a crew.
Yeah.
So he tells her that he actually recognized that young man making out with that woman on his knee in the kitchens that bothered you so much. And he gives her a summary of where he last saw Matt and what was happening with the Trollocs and Midroll and all that jazz. And he's still alive, and he seems to have come up in the world. Like last time he was dressed as a farmer, now look at him go. So any man that can accomplish all of that has got to be useful. And say, you don't know the half of how useful this guy is. You gotta get him on your team. So Edgy is still not convinced that these Trollocs and Midroll actually exist. So they don't have those in Seanchan lands. They have other horrors, but not these ones. So she doesn't quite believe that they exist. Well, if they do exist, they're not half as bad as he's making them out to be. He mentions Tom was a buddy of Matt, too. And Edgy knows Tom from when she met Bayle. So she's met him at least. So she's like, yes, that old guy was also very useful. So Edgy begs Bayle to tell her if he knows of any plot between the Aes Sedai and Suroth. But his reasoning is sound. It's possible that the Aes Sedai would treat with Suroth, but would Suroth treat with Almurat Mor?
No.
There's no chance, right? But he assures her that, as far as I know, there's no plot. And I'm wondering why she takes his word. Like, who is he to know of plots between these Aes Sedai and Suroth? Like,
maybe she just needs to hear it from someone.
Maybe.
Doesn't matter.
Maybe.
She's not thinking about it too hard.
Yeah.
Just reassure me.
Just wants reassurance. Yeah. Okay. I got it. So she gives Bayle orders, because she didn't free him, to go find Matt and Tom. I'm like, yes, those are good orders. You go do that. So with Bayle gone, she fills her dented goblet again with brandy and then thinks about how she's going to escape this predicament. And we leave them there. We'll leave her there.
Willem, do you have any thoughts you would like to share
I have
with us?
a lot of thoughts, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I had to qualify
it. It was the funniest thing for me in that section was when Bayle preaches to her about something and she doesn't quite like what it is that he has to say, and she nags him in his own accent. Oh, do be like that, whatever it was. Mocking him in his own accent. That was
There was
great.
a couple of funny little things. Like when Bethamin comes in as well, like Bayle, he comes over, he pours them each a drink, and then he pours himself a glass, and he's standing there watching them talk, drinking his glass of brandy. And Bethamin's eyes, I think, are like popping out of her head, and Egeanin's just thinking, "Oh, Bayle, god damn it." That's not what a Sojourn. Anyway. I just imagine him like leaning against the mantelpiece at the fireplace, like sipping like super cash.
Those are his rooms.
Yeah, so good.
He's no slave.
Anything else, Vil?
Oh, yes. We find out
that
she beat him. She had him beaten once. So, there we go. Taking Edgy down a rung or two there.
Yeah.
You were climbing the ladder, but now we're going to take you down.
Yeah, she's only working within the system that she's been given to operate in.
And then she had to apologize to him. Because he wouldn't keep with her.
She thinks to herself that she would marry the man Bayle Domon, but quote, she was bitterly unsure she could bring herself to marry manumitted property. Which I had to Google. I don't know what manumission was, and then I Googled that word, and now I know.
I assumed it was slave freeing.
Yes, that is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. The rank that Egeanin's mother achieved was the Hand of the Empress at Sea. It's like in charge of the entire navy.
Marshal.
She's sojourn to the Empress herself.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's Egeanin's mother. So, yeah, she comes from solid stock.
We know how these, blood families, these high blood families work. Like,
yeah. You guys are aware of
so
the fact
what?
that the blood they're speaking of is the blood of Arthur Hawkwing. Like, it's his direct descendants that are supposed to be the nobles. They have the blood of Arthur Hawkwing.
But you can also be raised to the blood. So now it's not.
Of blood.
But
originally.
there's also lower blood and high blood. So there's even a distinction within the blood about just how high.
Yeah, that's what I was like. How direct lineage do you have? Like, a branch that tailed off this end doesn't necessarily put you.
I think it's implied that the Empress is a direct descendant. Like, that family is always in charge. Jody, you mentioned briefly there about how this, like, the Seeker had taken some facts and sort of woven them together into something completely untrue, but even more damning. And Egeanin's words about that specifically are, the Seeker had woven happenstance and moonbeams into a strangling cord for her neck, if she was not named property instead. Which was, I thought, a cool turn of phrase. And I was like, strangling cord, that rings a bell. The blood, if executed, are strangled by a ceremonial cord. They are not stabbed or decapitated or beheaded or impaled or anything like that. They have there's a cord that by which they are strangled. So when she's talking here, it's like, now that she's been raised to the blood, her death sentence will be death by strangulation. So that's what she's referencing here.
Yes.
Yeah, Joe, you covered everything else. I had a little laugh at, like, again, and thinking these things could not be half as fearsome as he describes, the Trollocs and the Madral. And I just thought, wait until you're making quote unquote eye contact with a Fade. The look of the fearless is of the eyeless is fear. Cool. Should we move on?
Let's
do.
Radical. We will then go on to chapter 22 called Out of Thin Air. Vil, can you conjure out of thin air a chapter summary for us, please?
That I can do, but out of thin air, it's kind of like low-hanging fruit. I don't know if you want that. Point of view, Rand Althor. We ran chaptering again, and we are in Farm Madding. Ooh, that was quick, all of a sudden. And Rand is moving through the crowd. He's in incognito mode. Not even a cloak, not a sword. He doesn't want to be noticed. He doesn't want to be taken any notice of by the very prevalent street thug police in this place. They've got little standing towers at intersections. They've got eye line of each other, and they just literally bagging criminals. If you step out of line or look at someone the wrong way, you get grabbed with like a criminal
put in a leather sack.
And put in a leather sack with just your head out and get carted off real quick. Anyway, so Rand is low-key. Min is with his sword back at the inn. And he is on the tail or the trail of Rochard, who, if you remember, is one of the men who tried to kill him.
One of Taim's lackeys.
Yeah, one of the lackeys. He is dressed not to be missed, pompously and colourful red and coated and quilted and the whole lot, even like moustache cream, twirly moustache. So it makes
Dapper Dan.
Yeah, it makes it real easy for Rand to following him. And Rand figures, hey, if I can kill him before the other comes, it just makes the task a lot easier. Anyway, big laneway, big shopping streets turn to side roads. Still, though, police presence everywhere. And Rocade is keeping a pretty fast pace now all of a sudden. Rand then all of a sudden has a vision moment. And blur moment, and regathers himself to the guy that pushes him up. A eel moment, another eel man. That sends Randolph on a tangent of thinking, like, so happy he's not the tallest guy there. There's quite a mixed culture of people in and about Farmadding, including some tall, lost brotherless that, what are they? Well, the runaways.
I don't think this is one of the brotherless. This is one of the people that has just like completely
Runaway,
left
yeah,
all the Aiel ways. The brotherless are still like Aiel warriors,
They just
But
they don't
on-
have a set.
but they don't
or
believe in
whatever.
Rand. Yes, so they've
Well, what are
they've
you?
left
What
their,
are the
their clans
runaways
behind.
called? There was a word for them. The
I don't know if there's a specific word. We've not encountered an Aiel like this before. This is the first time that we see an Aiel who's completely left all the Aiel ways behind. Right? He's
bleak
not.
people.
The bleakness is what you're getting at. That's I think maybe as close as we've come to naming their condition or something. I don't know. Maybe that's a callback for you, Vil. What did we call the Aiel
I'll
that fell to the
totally,
bleakness?
totally put that in my research notes.
To add to all your others. But Luce Theron says to Rand in his head here, like, you really have broken them, haven't you? And like some of them are broken beyond repair. They will never return to the Aiel ways.
Yeah. Anyway, Rand sees Dracula run, coat flaring cape behind him into a corner, and he sets off after him. And as he turns into, like, now we in between the building alleyways, like man width, two men width, and you run in, like, you sort of imagine the Hitchcock movie with the steps in the alleyway. Tick, 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 tick. Then Rand realizes he's only hearing his own boots. He stops and rounds a corner, and there he is, and it's like, ah, haha, you fell into my trap, she. It was all a plot. But he had his sword half drawn at this stage. But Rand does super karate block, and he hits the sword back into the scabbard, which is number one cool. And this is a 3-punch combo. That is, the first one is the block, the second one connects him in the throat and sends him gasping for breath, and the third one he was about to land, where he breaks through his chest cavity and pulls out his beating heart. And got blocked because someone stabbed, and there was a voice that he heard behind him. Anyway, Rand swiveled, and there was another man with a sword bared ready, but he had society stick the wrong guy. So poor Rochi got killed by Kisman, and this was a bit of a plot. Anyway, Rand is faced off then with Kisman, realizing, because in this moment that it all happened, there was a tumble over. Rand had grabbed rope, shade, sword, and he was armed and ready to go. But then, as police hears these streets and the sound of a kerfuffle, they were like, beep, bop, beep, bop, running down the hallways with sacks and ready to bag them. So they both decided this is not where we want to be right now, and sort of agree. Rand drops the murder weapon, or no, not the murder weapon, a weapon.
No, the corpse's weapon.
Off. Yeah, the corpse's weapon. And that ends that perspective. Now, jumping to Rafar Kismar's point of view, who simply just blends in with the guardsmen all around, covers up his sword, so he just looks like a normal person cruising down the street. He has a bit of reflection on how stupid this was, how stupid Rashade's plan was. They should have waited for everyone. And is this even still the right move that they still should they be doing this? And where is the Mahal? And what the hell happened to Dashiva? So putting out all these little straw ends out there of who their crew is that they're dealing with. And then he looks down and he's got blood running down his sleeve. And he's like, oh shit. And then he hears the distinct yucky whispering voice, he belongs to me. And then he checks his wound and it's bubbling black blood, and Yeah, and then he falls into the blackness. And that's the end of his perspective right over there, and we don't really care because now he's dead.
The end of everything about him.
End of everything about him and what we knew. It's done.
Yes.
And we jump back to Rand. So we just had a little bubble outside of Rand's head. Now he's back at his inn. He spots a Land in the opposite end of the common room. Land, being ever the alert person, spots him immediately walking in. They make eye contact. There's a moment between them, and they both understand that they've got to go have a meeting at the back. At the back, Min is hanging out with Olivia, and they're having a fat chat with the innkeeper there. When Nynaeve also pulls in, dressed very modestly for her role and her purpose there. I mean, she's not even wearing her Aes Sedai ring. Yes.
There you go. Information
There
delivered.
you go.
But she's wearing a bunch of other rings.
Yeah, she
Like a
that's
shit
why I said
ton of
she's
them.
dressed very modestly for trying
yeah.
to be low key.
You being sarcastic.
Yes. Yes, Nynaeve is just flashing it up big time. But don't worry, I don't have my Aes Sedai ring, and everyone is thinking like, hey, it's not Aes Sedai that you should be worried about. You should be worried you're going to get robbed, stabbed for just attracting this much attention. Anyway, Rand then tells him to, was it Rand or Lan? I can't remember. Ask one of the wives, please, if it may, because it could be Nynaeve or Min, but I think it's Rand asking Min. So, and then go to the room, and then Rand tells her exactly how it all went down. He just killed a man, and that's where she's like, holy smokes. Nynaeve and Olivia joins them in the room. She's going, holy smokes, because she didn't feel any emotion, anger, nothing through the bond. Like Rand was just doing a report, print to PDF, and a
She has
daily
no
task.
fear or anger.
No fear, no anger. He's just a man that needed killing, and he did it really quickly.
Rand's response is, I wasn't angry with him. He just needed killing, that's all. And why should I be afraid? Like, genuine questions like, what?
Anyway, Olivia actually warns him
Badass.
that
So hard.
you shouldn't be taking risks like this. Min tells Rand that Olivia is right. Like, shouldn't be doing these type of things on his own, but, Rand doesn't have a problem now to help them find this attacker. Not that they're going to, because he can now make carbon copy drawings of people's faces. Could never draw before, but Luce can draw, and Luce is now so deeply embedded into him that he can now. He's got that skill.
He is Luz.
Yes,
Luz is not embedded. He is him.
he's discovering
Benefits
more.
of madness.
Yes. Anyway, then we have end of that perspective from Rand, and we quickly jump to Luke. Isom to some, Luke to others, depending on where he is, and then his general nickname or his employed name is Slayer. Anyway, Slayer's on a job. He is loving his life. He zaps into a room. He does dual knives, stab, 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 then lights a candle so that he can see what he's done, because he likes to see, and then memory photos of the victims, and then jumps through his magic cloud back to his. So he does like, this is the way that I see it. He's got his offices in Teleranroyed, and people would just pull in like cling, cling, cling. Door opens, and he sits down. He's like,
Welcome to Slayer
"Yep,
Inc.
I am wanting this person," and he's like, "Well, you know how this works. Accuracy is important. The better I understand where I've got to go." Then gets the job. He jumps through the bubble. However, he travels between the worlds. He does some stabs, takes a mind photo, goes back, shows his mind photo on the projector, and they're like, close enough. It was his cousin, and gets paid, and off they go.
I think we should add a section to the show of just Villy's fan fiction. At least we've got it recorded. Maybe we can collate it one day.
That's so fun. Yes. So he's literally on a job at Slayer Inc. He comes back. He's like, yeah, old lady, grey, bold man. He's like, no. And then he also thinks back, like, geez, how cool would it have been to kill your own cousin and his wife? So we know who he's sent after, Rand, obviously. And then
Doesn't he turn into Isom? Isn't he talking about his nephew and the wench? I thought it was Isom talking about Lan and Nynaeve.
no,
It's confusing, isn't it?
It's confusing because it could. I think it's Rand and
All of this inbreeding.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Because if he was Isom, I think he says cousin, eh?
He jumps into Teleranroid as Isom, and who likes hunting wolves?
check.
Isom likes hunting wolves.
Isom.
So in Teleranroid, and Luke in the real world. He's Luke in the real world.
No, he can be either. He can change in Teleranroid. He can change into either of them, and then step out as that person. So remember when he was eavesdropping on Egwene and Elaine and Nynaeve, he was Luke. He was a man that looked like Rand's uncle.
No.
It says nephew or cousin.
He had rather looked forward to killing his nephew and the wench.
So who does he turn into at the beginning of the chapter? Because before he steps through the
the previous
into the
sentence
real
he
world.
was
Luke.
gone before Luke straightened. So was he Luke? Wait.
Just
But if
before
there
he
was time
steps
to pass,
through, he changes into
he
one
became Isom. He was Luke when he went to do the murder. But if there was time to pass, hunting was always a pleasure. He became Isom. Isom liked killing wolves even more than Luke, and that's how the chapter ends.
Okay, so he was Luke. So he was hunting Rand and Min.
Yes,
Right. Okay.
his nephew.
Yes.
As a nephew, same.
Okay,
Nephew.
that was all. I've arrived back full circle to what I originally believed happened.
Thought. I just for some reason thought it was Isom and Nynaeve and Lan. But yeah, this makes sense.
It could easily have been, but the more likely target, I would imagine, because he was being sent by a Forsaken to do it.
He says it's more fitting to be in this persona as I do this. So like before he steps into the real world, he changes into, I think you were saying Luke, and then he commits the murder as Luke, which would make Rand.
Yeah, and just murders like some random old couple.
Yeah.
Because sorry,
what Willie didn't say is that Rand was telling everyone, okay, I've had this thing, everyone pack your shit, we're all leaving. And so they all left. So when when Luke comes to commit the murder, they've already gone. Someone else has taken the room.
someone else has checked in. Oh, shit.
Rand was
Yes,
right.
I
To
didn't
all right,
mention
everyone
that.
get your stuff and go.
It
Wow.
was get your things ready roll meeting that he called.
Vat je goed in trek.
Yeah. What else, Jody?
I don't know. Villy just picked up a very fluffy white dog.
And all
What were we
thoughts of
talking
Wheel of
about?
Time escaped your mind. Okay, let me rattle off some things here and see if it jars any thoughts loose, Jody. I was just stoked that we got a formatting chapter, right? So like this whole attack and everything that happened, which was what I was kind of waiting for a while. Remember early in this season, I spoke about how many chapters we get from points of view, and Rand was actually quite up there. And so I was waiting for some Rand chapters coming up, and this is obviously the beginning of that now in formatting. 2 false dragons from formatting, or at least from the areas where formatting is now based.
Yeah.
Both Rowland Darksbane and Urian Stonebow, about 1,000 years apart though. So I mean, it's not. I guess sooner or later there are going to be false dragons from the same place. No, we're not allowed to.
Shh.
Rand's hair is shoulder length now.
Yeah. Just wait for him to grow a mustache and it'll be an Aussie. A mullet and a mustache.
But have you ever imagined Rand? Like, I've never thought of him in my mind's eye with hair that long.
No, neither have I, but I
It's a
noticed
different
it
colour
this
now
time
too.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's really letting himself go, I think.
Well, he's in disguise.
Oh, right.
Because it's also coloured, but with herbs, not with so stuff Nynaeve gave him to.
Oh, he's
to
got
make his
black
dark.
hair now,
Yes. And it's like shoulder length black hair. Yeah. I, at first, thought, like Rand, that Rokade's red coat was him just showing off his stupidity, but I was as surprised as Rand when he reveals that he was purposefully luring Rand. So it worked on Rand and on me. I loved Rand's little clues that he left behind when Min's talking about them, or when he's talking about, like, okay, no, maybe they've put together things. Like the clues he left behind, he specifically made them seem like the types of things that a man in a hurry would leave behind or not care about so much. It was like very, very well thought out, which was really, really cool. The murky face that Rand sees in his mind, that's Moradin, right?
Yes.
Because it's not the colors. There was no mention of color.
No.
Rand says to himself, like, he doesn't even care whose face it is when he's hit by the dizziness. And my response is like, no, Rand, care. This is important. This is important stuff. You can't just see a face in your mind and then go, that's probably fine. Don't worry about
if you've been through what Rand's been through, this is just another thing to put on the big pile of crazy shit happening in his life.
I know.
Whatever. Another face in my brain.
Right. To go with my long list of the women that I've killed, to go with the memories and the presence of Lews Therin in there. And
I don't blame him, man. Like,
it's getting crowded in there.
Yeah.
He thinks to himself, he thought he could kill any two together, maybe even all five, but it could not be done quietly. He would take injuries against five, and at best he'd have to abandon his sword, which he was reluctant to do. It was a gift from Avienda. He's like, no, I could take all five of them, channelers who've been trained to varying degrees of effectiveness with the sword, but still, he's like, I'll take some wounds if I take all five of them. That's pretty fucking badass.
Sure, and Rand. Okay.
Even how he deals with Rokad, Phil, I can't remember if you mentioned this, but when Rokad wants to pull his sword out, Rand just steps towards him and he puts his hand on the hilt of the sword and pushes it back in the scabbard. Sorry, I was busy reading about the bleakness.
his 3-point combo. That was step one. Billy explained it more.
Sorry, I was reading about the bleakness at the time.
No, you missed out. There was the graphic
You
novel.
missed the action scene.
You missed the movement lines and everything. It's the
I'll
best
hear it
part
again
is
when I'm
always
editing.
ending up with his heart in the hand pumping.
I caught that part and I was like, wait, that didn't happen.
Wait. What was I reading?
It's just cool how effective Rand has become and how confident he is. Like all that stuff like feeds into like just he is such a badass.
I'm convinced that when it says there the killing blow, so 1, put the sword back in the scabbard, 2, immobilize the guy so he haunches over, and 3, hit him right behind the sword, just below the sternum, the killing blow. He's going to punch
hits him in the windpipe
into him and rip out his heart. That's what he was going to do.
No.
Well, he punches him in the throat and then he takes his sword
that's
to
the
stab
first
him.
one. The scabbard, stop the sword, throat, and then the
punch to
killing
the throat.
punch. And as the killing
And then
punch
the
was
third one was the
supposed to
punch.
happen,
Was it?
the
To the
stab
sternum?
of the sword from the back guy came.
Okay, well, maybe he was going to kill him by punching him in the
I
sternum.
I think he was going to break a rib and be like, or like a sternum,
Stun him more,
puncture his heart or something.
Whoa!
You know, like
He was going to rip out
finger
a rib
touch.
to
What's it?
stab him in the throat.
Rip out one of his own ribs and kill him with it. Wow. I think that only happens in like book 11 or something. He's not that far gone yet.
When he faces off against Kisman, he thinks to himself, Kisman was one of those Asha'man so proud to use the one power as a weapon. He disdained from really learning the sword. Rand did not disdain. And then he says to him quietly, time to die.
And Kisman believes him.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
Oh, so good.
He's like, shit. Oh, God. It's good to have you back, Rand.
Is this the first time that we read the words that Taim gave the order to kill Rand? Because we know it's his cronies, and I mean, guilty by association, right? Like, but we haven't read from anyone's point of view stating that Taim gave the order, because Kisman thinks about it, and I thought maybe this is the first time we read about it. But his orders are pretty clear.
Doubt on it. But I mean, it's clear on there, and it's also the Forsakens involved. So,
yeah, he lists off. He was told by the Mihail to kill Rand. Then he was told by Demandred to kill Rand, and then he was told by Moradin, if you must, kill Rand. So he's like, I'm going to be killing Rand. This is going to happen. All my superiors, all the way to the top, all the way to Nameless, are saying, kill him. All right. It was also just funny that Kisman, as a Terran, thinks that Demandred and Moradin are worse than Kyrinian. Yes, Kisman. Way, way worse. They are the Forsaken. Like... but he's putting like Kyrenian up there, like, oh, that's worse even than Kyrenian. That's like his yardstick for measuring how bad a person is.
Tree killers.
Rand has become so desensitized and so like badass about this whole like killing Ashaman thing. When he walks back into the inn, he smells the food. He's like, oh, I'm gonna miss the food here. We're gonna have to move now, and the food might not be as good as it is here. I've really been enjoying it. And then when Min does the whole thing about like, I didn't sense anything, he responds with that whole thing like, why would I be afraid? And he was just a guy that needed killing. I wasn't angry with him. Min reacts with just saying, oh, and sort of like looking worried. And Rand, the woolhead, reads it as Min being worried about getting hurt. And he just goes, I promise I won't let anything happen to you. But she's obviously worried about him. The fact that he's not showing any emotion about all this stuff. But he's like, oh, she must be scared. Don't worry. I'll protect you, Min. And she's just like, no, dude, I'm much more worried about you. Vil, all this jewelry that Nynaeve is wearing, you want a quick recap of what it all does? Because,
rubies.
Spoiler alert, it's fucking
all of it.
Rad.
Yeah, so Olivia is wearing the bracelet and ring with the...
Is she wearing that already? I think Nynaeve is wearing it here. I think she's got a whole bunch of rings. She loans it to Olivia when...
Olivia
is already
is
wearing it.
Wearing one, and Nynaeve has got a whole hoard of it.
Olivia certainly uses that ring and bracelet combo in the fight at Shadow Logoth, but I think later in the story, Nynaeve is always wearing it as well. So that's the rings and bracelet. Then there's a long necklace with rubies, the use of which is unknown. There's a belt with rubies, and this is a well, which allows a person to store an amount of Saidar for later use. This allows someone inside Farmading and presumably a steading to channel anyway, and RJ has also confirmed that it would allow someone who has been shielded to channel. Nynaeve's well can contain more Saidar than Cadsuane's. Remember, one of Cadsuane's paralysis net things is also a well, but Nynaeve's can hold more. Then there's a bracelet with rubies. It covers the user with armor made from air. We have not seen this use, so we do not know how effective it is, but Nynaeve states that whilst wearing it, she would barely feel a sword blow.
Mage armor?
Cool. Yes.
Hey,
yes.
Mage armor reminds me of Dune, of the shields in Dune.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I just rewatched both
body.
those movies this week.
Then there's a bracelet with emeralds, the use of which is unknown. Another bracelet with emeralds, the use of which is unknown. Keep these in mind because there is some speculation at the end. Then there's first a ring with green stones, or a single green stone that can detect channeling as much as 3 miles away and vibrates differently for Saidin or Saidar. Note, if the person has their weaves inverted, they can apparently the ring can't tell the difference between Saidin and Saidar. Cadsuane believes the ring should also indicate direction, likely because her swallow does so, but we've never seen any indication that this is possible. So Nynaeve has the makings of a paralysis net as well. She's got a lot of things, because Cadsuane also has one of those armor things. She's also got a thing that tells you where someone is channeling, in which direction. There's a second ring with green stones, the use of which we don't know. Then there's a ring with sapphires, which goes cold when someone is nearby, or when someone nearby is feeling hostile or angry. Nynaeve states that it does not indicate which person is feeling hostile or angry, nor does it differentiate between the two feelings. Then there's a second ring with sapphires, the use of which is also unknown. But one of all these unknown Terangriel breaks direct weaves like Matt's medallion. So right now, as Nynaeve is cruising around, I mean, granted, she is in Farmading, so no one can channel around her anyway. But the way that she's cruising, she's got physical protection from the shield of air. No one can channel a weave directly at her. She's got a powerful Ungreal. She can tell when someone is hostile near her, and she can tell in which direction someone is channeling Saidin or Saidar. She is a fucking beast at this stage, right? Like, she can take on just about anybody.
All these tools that are currently useless.
Yes, in Farmading, yes.
All right, great.
Except for the well.
Yeah.
So we finally get some payoff as well from Isom and Luke, or notably from Isom, I think. He thinks back to killing Joya and Amiko in the Stone of Tyr. Remember those two Black Archer sisters that were caught during the taking of the stone? And he also reminisces about killing the Grey Man in the White Tower, the one that we spoke about recently that Egwene had sort of wrapped in air and he had stabbed. Notably, does not mention the Grey Man that was found in Sheriam's bed. So whoever else was operating in the tower had killed that guy and put that in Sherry's bed. It wasn't Slayer, or at least he either has forgotten about it or was just phrasing his reminiscing weird. And then also I noted that the Slayer or the Isom Luke combo is a weird one. I like that we're talking about it a lot because it is sort of crystallizing in my mind what that entity is, but they certainly are different consciousnesses, right? Like they sort of have to willingly hand over the body to the other one, which is just one of those cool, like unique things in the Wheel of Time. Like no one else has that ability. And that is it from me. Jody, any last thoughts or should we move along?
No, we can go.
All right. In that case, we will move on to chapter 23 called To Lose the Sun. Joe, who is losing this metaphorical sun?
Everyone. That's who.
Who can channel?
All right. Yes. Everyone who's of any importance. Segregation. We're with Shalon.
Mm-hmm. Shallot.
What do you call shallot? Shalon is how I pronounce it. Could be
I
Shallon.
also say Shalon because Australians pronounce shallot shallot.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
for some weird
I just
reason.
automatically went to Shalon.
I'm going to go for Shalon too. She's traveling. Capital T and lowercase t. With Cadsuane, I had to go back and forth a lot. Cadsuane, Alana, Varen, Kumira, Elza, Arian, Beldine, Nesun, Sereni, Corel, Maurice, and Egeanin. Along with their warders, Thomas, Ivan, Nathan, and Bassane, who I imagine is like an Italian warder. Bassane. Cazzo the lasagna with his sword. Some Asherman are there too.
Not offensive.
Sorry to Italians. Dharma is there, Narishma is there, and Ebenetzbeth is there. 128 games, most capped player. He's there too. Shalon may not be allowed to know anything about where they are going or how to weave the gateways taking them, but she has been keeping her mouth shut and keenly studying the Aes Sedai. This chapter is from Shalon's perspective and all her mental note-taking. Basically. So no one's told her anything. Yes, I have included a fair bit of it, but not all of it.
Cool.
We've got to leave something for, to discuss afterwards. She doesn't know much about the Aes Sedai so far, but she does know it's not all sunshine and daisies between them. There are strong undercurrents between them. And also, is Daigian's warder a fucking Asherman? Like, is she bonded? Like, this is Shalon. I'm speaking as Shalon. I'm channeling her. And she's like, is he a fucking Asherman? Are they bonding Asherman? Of course, Hareen is there, complaining. That's what she does. Apparently, she's not going to put up with this treatment from Cadsuane any longer. But we and Shalon have heard this story before. Lots of complaining from her. Her sword master, Mode, is there as well. Or you might pronounce it Moad, so it doesn't sound too much like Toad. No. Is there as well, but it seems like that's all the sea folk Cadsuane allowed to bring. It was Hareen, Shalon, and Mode, and no one else. That's another thing she's complaining about, is that she wasn't allowed to bring her, bargained upon entourage and etc., 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 and all the other things. So yeah, Willie gets Isom and Luke and Rand. And I get Shalon.
You get Shalon.
I see how this hierarchy works, you guys. Yeah.
How's your garlic chopping skills?
Quite good. I heard that something about like maybe vampires are fooling us into believing that garlic is bad for them, and all they're doing is tricking us into seasoning ourselves beforehand. They actually love it.
Yeah, blood.
I like to suck your blood.
Lots of vampire references in this episode.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe because someone once mentioned Mudral. So she's still grumbling in the background, Hareen that is, when Shalon realizes she's been asked a question. She's like, huh? Both Shalon and Mode are completely and blatantly ignoring Hareen. But Hareen has asked where they were. So she has a windfinder with her, and she's like, hey, where are we? So using her windfinder celestial navigation skills, she calculates that they are roughly 300 to 400 leagues south of Cairhien. So obviously they were not allowed to see the weave. The gateway was already open when they were allowed into the rooms in Cairhien. So they're being kept to the dark. But now they are 400 leagues almost away from where they started through one step. She could be more specific on that location if she had her sextant. So they have sextants, do they? But they're not allowed to take those off the ship. They're not allowed anyone, non-seafolk, to see them, lest their minds explode from awe and wonder at this great sextant. Well, it is a, non-magical, amazing object.
It is.
For everyone else. But it is their minds that are exploding now. These 400 leagues would take their fastest ships around 4 days. So they can get like 100 leagues a day. That's like a good day sailing. And Shalon can see Hareen's gears turning in her mind as she's fantasizing about rakers sailing through gateways and coming out on the other side of the world in like a second. The seas will truly be theirs then. She tells Shalon that she must learn this traveling weave at all costs. They try to hatch a plan. When I say they, Hareen tries to hatch a plan for Shalon to pretend to spy on Hareen in exchange for knowledge. But Shalon's like, I've already been approached by that, by Cadsuane to do this very thing, and I refused her. Hareen doesn't care. Shalon will try again, but like she doesn't want to go because that whole interaction with Cadsuane was about her little tryst being found under the bed with a certain someone we shall not name, mainly because I forgot her name.
Rioton.
That's the one. So at this point, Serene, one of the Aes Sedai, White Aja, approaches them to say that Cadsuane has ordered her to be Hareen's attendant. Any questions they have can be directed to her directly, and she'll help with teaching them their local customs. Hareen refuses her help. She's like, no, I instead want to talk to Cadsuane directly, thank you. She is, like I am, Hareen speaking, for the mistress of the ships, and she will have her due respect. I'm like, no, you won't. Also, she's speaking on behalf of mistress of the ships, so she hasn't yet found out that the current mistress of the ships has a pole through her body. Yes, is no longer with us. So Hareen is the one that takes over, right? She becomes the new mistress of the ships. Yes. We've discussed this several times. Like, it's coming, but we just keep on speaking about it as if it's already happened. Yes. But it has not. Okay. And then Serene, like, they have this conversation, and Serene seems to apologize to Hareen, excuse the similar sounding names, for that day, I quote. She had very specific instructions from Cadsuane, but apologizes for getting angry. She shouldn't have let that happen. What happened there? She spanked her, I imagine. Yeah, yes. Okay.
But Cadsuane gave her... Cadsuane, when she sent Serene away, after she touched Cadsuane's face, she said, okay, Serene, take her to their rooms, let them go meditate. They're not like fast and meditate on civility. And if they give you any trouble, spank them, but do it civilly.
Yes. Now, I remember that giving an order, so it actually happened. I didn't. Again, this happened off page.
It seems like
I remember the orders being given, but I don't remember her actually spanking her.
You spank someone civilly.
You asked that very same question last time,
and we said that is the joke. You can't do that. It's not a literal instruction.
Well, apparently it was for Serene.
I don't think it was done very civilly.
Well, maybe you just dress up.
She was like, if you need to spank them, I'm going to need to spank them. Let's go, girls. So Shalon notices this too. She's, again, noticing everything. She sees this little interaction. And she's like, which orders did Serene get? And why does Hareen want to forget these orders and to stop talking about it? Even Mode is now openly intrigued, raising his eyebrows, going, what? What's all this then? Because he was openly studying the Aes Sedai and Warders. Probably more the Warders, being the sword master he is.
Yeah.
Hareen asks where they are and where they are going. And I think that's a fair question. At least tell us where we are and where we're going. Yeah. But before Serene can answer, Cadsuane appears, like a fucking vampire out of nowhere. She's behind you. Boo. And takes over. They are in the hills of Kantara, and they are heading to Far Madding. Everyone's heading to Far Madding. And then you go, why are they heading to Far Madding? And then you see that Alana's with them, and you go, that's why they're heading to Far Madding. So Rand, for all his clever little ploys and tricks and side steps, remember you have an Aes Sedai bonded in your brain. She knows where you are at all times.
I wonder if the Terangriel in Far Madding affects the bond. I wonder if,
look,
it disappeared, and that's why they know he's there.
I don't think so. But I did Google this, and I went down a little mini rabbit hole on Reddit about this. That thread on Reddit is boring, nasty people. Don't speak like that about Robert Jordan. They're going on about the slog a lot and how they skip parts so they didn't really understand this and how this whole Far Madding sequence is a waste of everyone's time. I'm like, what? You bastards. It's called world building. Excuse me.
Foolish.
For enjoying, wandering around in some different cities for a while.
But did it yield any results? Did you find out why they've tracked Rand to Far Madding? Or if
because
the bond
because the bond is the weird thing, because it's not an active weave, so it doesn't matter if you go into Far Madding or a steady, you can still feel the water bond.
Right.
Because this entire time, Alana is like a bloodhound on a leash. They're constantly holding her back. Yeah, she just wants to go, because she's so close. You can sense him now. Yeah. She's like, this way. Wagging her tail like a whole butt. So
is she doing what parents should have been doing in the snow? Like literally.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Perrin needs to hang out with Alana more. Although they have hung out quite a bit.
They've hung out. She almost bonded in.
Yeah. Indeed. He was lucky. So Hareen asks if the Koramur is in Far Madding. So she's sharp as well. It's like, must be here for him. But Cadsuane tells her to have patience. Patience, my young Padawan. Also, they'll ride together now, and Hareen will shut the fuck up. You will not speak. You will not say anything. You will not look at anybody funny until I give you permission to say anything. Blah, 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 blah. So they head south with the Aes Sedai riding ahead. That's what we'll ride together means. We'll ride ahead. You ride in your little group behind us. Cadsuane and Varen are chatting together, like two peas in a pod. Always got their heads together, but so quietly they can't hear anything. Alana, like I said, looking south intently and getting ahead at times, and Cadsuane having to pull her back, hang out with us. Shalon, again, noting all of this for later inspection in her brain. She's thinking as well, you do not rise to the ranks in the Seafolk by just weaving air. You have to understand the undercurrents of both the ship, under the ship, literally, and also on the deck of the ship, of all the little nuances between people and hierarchies and whatnot. So she's very keen on watching that stuff. She's very career-orientated. On the ride, she also notes that these Aes Sedai are clearly segregated. Cadsuane, Maurice, Corel, Chimera, and Egeanin, I always have to double say her name twice, Egeanin in one group, and then Nasoon, Arian, Beldine, and Elza in another. Elza, remember, Black Aja. With Alana flitting between the groups. Because that's just Alana. I imagine that's just her personality. She only cares about her warders and Rand being her warder, I suppose. And these two groups, whatever your interplay is, don't give a shit. Yeah. She's also noted, Shalon, that is, or Shalon. I can't pronounce her name now. I don't even remember what I was. Shalon, okay. She's also noted that the Aes Sedai defer to strength in the one power. So she's making a little list. She's right on a lot of things. But she's missed the Arjas. She Arjas completely, thinking that the colors are just... they are wearing just mean nothing more than the Aes Sedai have terrible taste in fashion and they're bland. She's like, this woman would be pretty if she wore brighter colors, but she's dressed all in white. She's white Aja. Yes. Yeah. So she doesn't get some things, but she's on it. She's just constantly got her eyes and ears open. Serene murmurs that the male channelers can no longer channel, as they pass into the first exclusion zone around Far Madding, which we see is an island city like Tarvalon. Shalon asks if they had to gentle the male channelers. Is that why they were able to bond them? And Serene breaks out of her thoughts, and she's like, wait, she was just mumbling to herself that the male channelers can't channel, but she says to her Serene had not been addressing her, just talking to herself, and it makes her realize that Shallan is sharp and warns her as well to keep what she's noticing to herself. You are in a dangerous group of people. Shut up. Like the Ashaman,
those men are not gentled.
no, anything but.
Yeah.
So she tells her, like, keep it to yourself. And the next words out of her mouth are like the Ashaman being your warders. Did you have to gentle them so that you could bond them? And Serene just gives her one of those Aes Sedai looks, like, what the fuck did I just say? Shut up. So after some silence, Serene talks again and tells them about the Te'angril in the city. Or perhaps 3 Te'angril. 2 Te'angril, no one knows because no one can study them. Because of how they affect Aes Sedai. So they don't know what they do exactly, but they do know that they replicate the conditions in a steading. At least the conditions that are important to Aes Sedai in a steading. The Ogiers might have a different opinion on what's important in a steading. And the mention of Ogier surprises the sea folk, because these backwater rednecks don't even believe in Ogier, turns out. They think it's fables. Their fables are fables about the Aelfin stealing their bread and the Ogier chopping off your head. So, yeah, wrong. The Aelfin and the Ogier both exist.
Yes.
But when you're out on the sea, you're cut off from...
Not a lot of Ogier out on the open ocean.
No, not a lot.
Or Aelfin.
Or Aelfin, yeah. Serene tells them inside the city, they cannot channel or even feel the force, the source. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So no weave as well from outside can affect what's happening inside. So you're completely cut off unless you have a well. So Shallan is afraid of what it would feel like to lose Saidin. Like, she's learned how to shield someone, and they call it sheathing. I thought was interesting. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
The Seafolk call it sheathing someone from the sword, because she learned that from Nynaeve. We had that whole session over there.
That was Talan.
But she was in the room.
Was she? She might have been there. There was other windfinders.
All the windfinders were in that room.
But Shallan at that stage was being kept in the manor house with Idle under Cadsuane's.
Oh, wasn't she there? Yeah,
she was captive.
But anyway. Yeah. Regardless, since then, she has learnt about shielding, and she has been shielded herself during these trainings, so she knows what it feels like. She knows you can't touch Saidin, but you can still feel it.
Yeah.
In Far Madding, it would be like losing the sun. So, what a coincidence. They cross the causeway bridge thingy to the city, and abruptly... Shallan and the rest of the channelers lose the source. Boom! Just as they cross this threshold. So the outer ring first deactivates male channelers, and then as you get closer, female channelers.
Yeah.
So before entering the city, they pass through a guard post where the guards, where the newbie, the rookie, writes their names in a ledger with his tongue sticking out between his teeth. And they tie the men's swords together with what is called the peace bond over the hilt and the scabbard to prevent it from being drawn. Fine metal threads that are wrapped around and secured with little lead discs and stuff. It's very intricate, but it's done by the captain of the guard there, or whatever he is, the man with a scar on his face. But he does it deftly. He's done it plenty of times. So we learned a little bit more about how the city works, and they don't allow swords inside. And if you do, you have to have this peace bond wrapped around it, and they'll inspect it when you leave. And if not, then you have to leave your sword at that guard post. And then when you leave the city, you have to come through the same guard post because they're not moving your swords for you, blah, 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 blah. All right, so we learn all of that stuff, and then they enter into the city with Serene acting as a tour guide, explaining the history of the city, but Shallan is not paying any attention. All she is aware of is the terrifying lack of the one power. The end.
Yeah. She starts off the chapter when she's told the thing first. She starts off like, I've been shielded before, it should be fine. As the chapter progresses, she gets more and more nervous about it. And when it ends, she is actually shaken to her core. Like, oh my God, this is terrible. I hate this.
Is this how normal people live? Oh my God.
Yeah. It's actually a cool progression.
A
little tool from RJ.
Yeah, but in the end, it is a chapter about sea folk, so...
I actually thought when I started reading it,
I'm,
I was picturing Talan. I thought it was Talan we were reading about, but then I was like, oh no, Shalon. Oh God, I don't care for her. She Hareen's sister as well, right? Like the two of them have this.
Her older sister, so she has to like, yeah. And Hareen as well. I get from this chapter and all other chapters before is like an impertinent child, and
Awful.
she's gonna lead the sea folk.
Yeah.
May the light help them all.
Well,
Sorry,
Seafolk
Vil.
don't really care. Like,
No one does.
Point of perspective. Like, I don't care. I don't want to hear about your story or your thoughts. But I've got to try and remember some of these people because somewhere they do play a role. I'll try and be better. But yeah, I don't have much for that chapter.
I mean, I scored some more points for Cadsuane in this chapter. Like the way that she's handled Hareen. Like when she talks, Hareen just listens now. And you could see like Shalon is watching Hareen react to Cadsuane's orders. And she can see that she's bottling it up and she's barely like she's not actually, everyone can see how frustrated she is, but she's not saying anything. And then there's loads of egg on Hareen's face as well. When Cadsuane hands a pouch of gold to the head guard at that guard post, Hareen says loudly, maybe for a sales mistress, they wouldn't need to have a bribe to enter the city or something. And then later Serene explains to her, so what Cadsuane was paying for there is the peace bond, right? Like that's the thing that gets wrapped around the sword. So like Hareen made this big hoo-ha, like, oh, you have to bribe the soldiers to get in. You do. No, actually, you just don't know anything about what's happening and maybe you should just shut up. It's great. Love it. Suck it, Hareen. I'm glad that Cadsuane is being careful about people seeing the traveling weave. So, like, Shalon and those guys couldn't be around, which is great. And when I first read about the clearing that they had stepped into, I sort of, for some reason, I immediately imagined like some of the organized clearings that Rand had sort of positioned with his army with like ropes around it. But it's just a clearing in the hills that Cadsuane would be familiar with because she grew up in farming. So it's just literally a clearing in the forest, not a designated traveling ground. I had to remind myself about a couple of these Aes Sedai and who they are. Kumira, one of the Aes Sedai that arrived with Cadsuane, it was her and Daigon. So Daigon and Kumira arrived. Shalon notices that Kumira is staring at Eben so sharply it was a wonder he wasn't lying on the ground flensed, which I now know means skinned or flayed. But it's Daigon who bonds Eben Hopwell as a warder. So maybe Kumira is eyeballing him because she's mistrustful of this relationship that seems to be burgeoning between Daigon and Eben. Not a romantic relationship, but a working relationship.
I think isn't she brown, Asha?
She is.
Yeah, so I think she's just like looking at him as if he's a specimen to be studied.
Maybe.
Like I think it's just her brown sensibilities.
She's looking at him so sharply that Shalon thinks he should be lying on the ground. It's a wonder he's not on the ground flayed. But maybe flayed
like
for examination. Yes,
like,
yes.
That's
okay,
what
okay, that tracks. I like that.
Like it's like she's dissecting a frog, you know, like she's looking at him as a subject of study.
Okay, yes, she is a brown from Shinar. More vocabulary time for Mo. We often read the word brocade, like brocaded silks and stuff. Like I don't know exactly what that is, so I looked it up, and it's like it's a rich silk fabric with raised patterns in gold and silver, or a fabric characterized by raised designs. So it's like this textural element where the designs are up off the silk fabric. Here we go. Learn something new. Beldine. Beldine appeared for the first time as Egwene's keeper for the Chronicles when Egwene went through the Terangral to become accepted. That's the first time you read about Beldine, is actually in a vision world. Yeah. In her third trip through the Three Arches, Egwene sees herself as Amilyn and Beldine as her keeper, even though she does not know Beldine. Beldine is sent on the kidnapping mission because she doesn't have the ageless look yet. She's so new to Aes Sedai. She's one of the servants, quote-unquote servants, that snuck into Rand's room with the chests of gold when Galena and the crew kidnapped Rand. He didn't recognize the Aes Sedai face because she hasn't achieved it yet. So she could hide in disguise. And she's also the one that we actually see Varen apply the compulsion to. When we join Varen in the Aiel camp, and she's actually weaving the. Remember, she's like all like floppy on her lap, like as she's laying these weaves on her. That was Beldine. Arian Arian tries to find out what the Aes Sedai and Mir are doing in Cairn, so she is refused permission to board their ships. We read about that at some point, that she was trying to board the ships but was denied permission. She's one of the Aes Sedai who kidnapped and beat Rand, and during an escape attempt, Rand killed 2 of her warders. So Arian is the one that Galina then gives permission to beat Rand, but Arian refuses to beat him after the second day. And although Arian isn't mentioned during the cleansing of Sidin, Jordan said that this was a mistake and that she actually was meant to be guarding the non-channelers in the group, Min, Hareen, etc., along with Lan and the other warders. This is confirmed in the Wheel of Time Companion. So when we get to that chapter soon, just remember that's where Arian is with the non-channelers. Shoo, yeah, okay, so that's some of the Aes Sedai there. Shalon is really smart because, Joe, you mentioned she picks out, like, okay, they follow a power structure based on, or a hierarchy based on their strength in the power. But then there are some of these others in this one group that are higher ranking that look like they're carrying a great shame or that they committed some kind of cardinal sin. And it's these kidnappers, right? So, like, even the low-ranking Daigon, who's like very low in the power, she sort of has some kind of moral superiority over these. And Shalon is picking up on all of this, which is pretty damn sharp. What else did I have here? Oh, nothing. That's everything. Covered it all.
I can't remember who, but I not to be very vague, but don't get attached to a lot of these Aes Sedai because during the cleansing, they don't make it out of there.
Do you remember that, or have you read ahead now?
No, well, I was searching up for who these Aes Sedai were and trying to group them into their little subsections. I found out some stuff about them.
Okay, cool. All right, well, if that is it, have you guys remembered to pick your favorite moments?
I have.
Excellent. Phil, we haven't heard from you in a while. What was your favorite moment?
My favorite moment is Rand's 3-hit combo as it was laid out, described.
Damn.
And it's the only action bit in this whole stretch of like
Is this the first time the three of us have picked the exact same favorite moment?
Really?
No.
That's what I picked as well.
It's always at least, I mean, 2 of us picking the same moment is pretty common.
That happens all the
If
time.
Matt is involved, that's guaranteed. But all of us picking the same moment and there's no Matt?
And it is just a moment, right? It's not like a theme or like a cool scene or something. It's like it's when Rand stepping to him, pushing the sword back, crushing his throat, getting him down, and then dodging that.
You can just imagine 3 panes drawn Samurai Jack style. Like, what?
Yeah.
Or Ninja Scroll. You just see him standing there after the fact, and then people fall over.
Exactly. That is what that was for me. It's like you just saw the 3 motions, like and described exactly the killing blow.
It's so cool how Rand is like such a good swordsman now, but like also has been studying all that Aiel hand fighting, hand-to-hand combat stuff, and then also
so much so that
he's
happy to go out without a sword. Like he knows he's in a city where he can't channel. Without a sword, I'm gonna go kill some men with my hand.
Yes,
I mean that's why he's there.
A group of men. I could probably kill 5 of them.
Lure them to a place where they can't channel, and I will have the upper hand. Because none of them can fight with a sword like me. None of them are hand-to-hand proficient like I can kill them
I was
hands.
going to leave the sword behind. Like, this is kind of hands.
And then he got a bit of help from his best buddy, Padan Fain.
Yeah.
Well, he's there.
When I read that, I heard as he read it.
I was expecting Kisman to like smell him first and then... I've got an honorable mention. If anyone else has theirs,
I have one. I do very much, but I mentioned it already. It's just that Eggy, like ragging Bayle Domon about his accent.
Oh, his accent.
That's great.
Much like Jody did to our entire Italian listenership.
I regret nothing. Yet.
My honorable mention is predictably loving when Hareen was squirming in her conversation with Serene, who very coolly and matter-of-factly talks about following Cadsuane's instructions and spanking Hareen civilly. Hareen's words are, "I feel no discomfort!" ! I speak for the mistress of the ships of the Aes Sedai and Mir. I demand due respect. I demand it. Do you hear me? do you? You know, it's like it's imploring, you know, like begging them to admit that she has some level of respect due to her. And it's just not forthcoming. It's so good. And then later when Cadsuane gives Hareen more orders and Shalon expects an outburst, but Hareen bottles it up with obvious effort out of fear of reprimand from Cadsuane. So, yeah, more points for Cadsuane.
So a sea folk honorable mention, but as long as they're squirming.
That's the only way it's going to happen.
Only time, yeah.
Okay. Maybe we'll see in the last book if they do a lot of really cool shit with the Bowl of the Winds.
And Egeanin.
Yes. Any other honorable mentions?
And shit, man, there's lots of
every
so
single
much.
person.
I don't know.
Yeah. No,
I'm already saying no. They're not going to compete with all the cool shit that happens in the last battle.
No, they're not. Any more honorable mentions?
That's me. All good.
Robert Jordan. I honorably mention him.
Honorable mention. Okay.
He passed away. It was his anniversary of his death in September 17th or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was just the other day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then I will turn the metaphorical microphone over to our listeners and say, send us your favorite moments, your theories, things we missed, answers to our many questions, or corrections. You can do so using the social media links in the episode description, like @BloodandAshPod on X, or our website, bloodandashespodcast.com. On the site, you can buy a t-shirt, leave us a message, or record a 90-second voice message we can play on the show. You can be famous. Well, podcast famous. Also, please take a moment to review our show on your favorite podcast app, and then knowing you've done everything you can to grow our loyal community, you can start turning your mind's eye towards next time on Blood and Ashes, where we will cover chapters 24 through 27. 4 more chapters. They are called, 24 is called Among the Councils. Chapter 25 is Bonds. Chapter 26, Expectation, and 27, To Surprise Kings and Queens. I don't know how I fucked that up. To surprise queens and kings.
Doesn't matter. I think the meaning is unchanged.
Councils, I think that's like the leading councils in Farmadding. They have like a big audience there. Varen and Cadsuane have to face up to them to try and bargain to get Rand released or something happens. I could be wrong. Bonds, could it be the peace bonds maybe, and the bonds to the waters?
Lan and Rand fight in a tavern hallway and fall off a roof into the street below. There's a sword fight with the rest
Lan
of the Ashman that come.
Yes.
It's hardcore. Lan gets injured, I think. Lan has to fight like 5 guys. It's all coming back to me, guys.
Whoa, I don't remember any of that.
A hectic sword fight happens here at some point before they leave.
Oh, isn't Torum Raiton? Doesn't he appear here and Lan kills him?
Now you're getting too specific for me.
Now I'm throwing some hand grenades.
Name dropping and everything. Wow.
To surprise queens and kings, who knows?
I know nothing. I have no idea what's going to happen with Farmadding. Up until recently, I just realized that it was a Tyrangriel I couldn't chap. And then I was like, okay.
cool. This is actually great. Like, you know, like the less you remember about the original reads, like the more you get to enjoy the stuff like a first time reader, and the more the excitement. That's cool. Speaking of excitement, only 3 episodes left of this book.
Ooh.
Exciting times. Shadow
Cleansing
Logoth
the Source coming soon. Yeah. 3 more episodes. Sweet.
Yes. But it will not be in the next episode, where I will see you all for chapters 24 to 27. And until we do, I will say to all of you, sleep well and wake.
Very good evening.
Adios.